OTB AM.
With Gillette. Get into your flow with the new Gillette Labs Razor with exfoliating bar.
All right, you're very welcome along. It's Tuesday morning. It's Ger Eoin with you all the way through until 10. As ever, we'd love to hear from you. The hashtag OTB AM on Twitter, or of course you can leave a comment on the YouTube stream, or you can even text us, and you know the text number by now, 0879 180 180. That's the WhatsApp number, isn't it?
Yes, I've never checked our WhatsApps actually.
You should.
Is there like a group chat that goes on that I'm not part of?
I mean, there's many of those on. You know that. That's how life works, right?
Yeah.
Ever decreasing circles.
That's it. Yeah, ever decreasing circles of smaller WhatsApp groups of people talking about you behind your back.
Pretty much.
What life is.
And then you die.
Yeah.
And on that, Ger, you know, that's the end of today's show, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for tuning in. The sunniest day of the year yesterday. There's lots of pictures of people on beaches. Were you on Burrow Beach yesterday?
I was not on Burrow Beach yesterday. That's a hidden gem that you advised me to go to last year. It is an excellent beach. You kind of want to go there and buy one of the houses that overlooks Burrow Beach.
I mean,
and
if you've got a spare 9 million.
If you've got a spare 9 million and also a spare 9 million put aside for like 20 years' time when your house is underwater.
With the way things are going, could it be the next 8 weeks before it's underwater?
Correct, but a gorgeous little part of the world, which I did not go to yesterday though. So yeah, the hottest day of the year and me are not a great combination, naturally enough, for obvious reasons. So I kind of stayed out of the sun until the evening time. I
was in Youghal.
Oh yeah.
It's not close. It's like 3 hours down and 3 hours back. We were filming a piece with Davy Russell for Friday Night Racing, which you'll see either this week or next week. And we couldn't have picked a better day. Like when you're on a farm on the day when it's sunny and everybody's happy, it's like, this is the greatest lifestyle that anybody ever has anywhere in the world. And also, like, I don't know if you know Youghal, but it's like mad long beach and the town, and then their farm is literally in the town. It's like, you know, a kilometre from the seafront, and there's been kind of development all around it. So it's got this really kind of unique setting in that you are living in town on a farm. And so there are these like beautiful 2-year-old horses galloping around who have not been broken, and you're thinking, this is like, there's nothing else in your life.
You were considering not driving back up the road yesterday.
I was like, if only I knew anything about anything, like, you know, as opposed to, you know,
Ger Gilroy's local coffee shop now opening in Youghal.
Well, you need to live, the farm lifestyle is the thing, like, where, you know, you're surrounded by these beautiful animals.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'd recommend, Youghal was like really beautiful and not particularly busy compared to other places down the way. So a nice part of the world.
The Grey Cork propaganda this morning, of course, which is always a good thing. I've never actually been down to Youghal. So it's like, would you say it's upmarket?
No, I wouldn't. I'd say they're your
prices are okay.
Your kind of people own.
My kind of people, okay, yeah.
My
genuine.
kind of people, yeah. Genuine.
Yeah.
Genuine.
Genuine. GIN. Well, that's good. When is the piece coming out?
This week, definitely. Colin says, I got caught in a shower yesterday afternoon around 4 o'clock. Anybody else? It was like 60 seconds in total. Mental afterwards. It was as if nothing had happened.
Best 60 seconds of my life. Got caught in that as well. Absolutely fantastic. Just a lovely, just a lovely cold shower in the middle of the day.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, it's totally fine. That's what everybody wants. A little bit of cooling down on a hot day.
Yeah.
You seem perturbed there, Owen. Are you all right?
I don't know, it was just a weird look there. It's like, what, did I say something wrong?
No, you didn't. So your annual pilgrimage to the counties involved in the All-Ireland finals. Great stuff from Limerick last week, which obviously, and last year, which now you know everybody in every club. So when they come on the next day, you're like, oh, I was blah, 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 blah. It's like,
exactly.
Look at that. Look at him.
Look at that insight.
Look at him sleazing all over these Limerick hurlers. I know you and your family and your family's family and everything about you and your club and all that history.
Somebody was listening to yesterday's OTB.
Yeah, it was excellent. It was a really brilliant show, apart from the lines keep dropping. But other than that, it was really good. And you're obviously going to do the same Kerry this week, except you're going to have to keep it at some kind of weird journalistic arm's length. How do you do that?
I reckon that the Kerry thing is just going to be a massive disappointment. Where I actually don't talk to anybody interesting. I actually haven't got a Kerry planned at all yet. I don't know. Galway is like planned to a T. I am going there first, so that helps. So I know exactly what I'm doing in Galway. Kerry, I actually don't know yet. There's been a few people I've got in touch with who aren't around, and also just the sheer size of the county. Like, how do you get an accurate representation of Kerry in the space of a few hours, when that's kind of the time you have to go and record? Are you picking West Kerry? Are you picking South Kerry? Are you picking the Kenmare area? Are you potentially venturing into North Kerry, where Kerry's full back is from? There's many opportunities. Whereas, as Galway people would tell you, there's a bit of a divide in their county where it at least narrows it down somewhat. That's not the case at home. And so the pressure's on, I think, to do.
Well, I was going to say the Kerry equivalent of the Cranberries is Michael Fassbender.
Yes, actually.
We should get him on.
Good point. He's more into his rallying than his football, but I think that could be an interesting chat. Michael Fassbender and his love of cars. I'm not sure is he in the country at the moment, but if you're listening, Michael, you know where to find me.
Send the message out. Send your little sparrows out.
Yeah, if it could.
I mean, I say your little sparrows. I mean the Kerry Mafia WhatsApp group.
Yes, exactly. I could just message them rather than putting out a message through the show, obviously. But I don't know. I mean, it would be great to get him on. Is he the Kerry version of
Who else?
Yeah.
Who else has reached the global? I mean, obviously the Kerry group, but how about that butter, lads? That's good butter. That's some good animal feed that you've developed there. I love your work.
We could just recreate the old Kerry Gold ad, where an inch is a mile with Dara O'Canada in it. That was a top class ad. Not sure. Was there any other celebrities in that ad?
I don't think that was for Kerry Gold, was it?
Oh, was it not?
It was for the knockoff, wasn't it?
Which is?
I don't know. Not a knockoff, but the rival.
Kerry made.
The rival. Wasn't it for the rival?
I don't know.
I think it was.
You were asking me about a time.
The Kerry Gold ads were all like sex in France. That's what that was all about.
I could just meet one of the people who are having sex in France to talk about Kerry Gold.
No one was actually having sex. It was hinted at because it was Ireland.
Oh, it was Ireland in the 2000s.
Yeah, well,
yes.
in the late the 90s.
Okay.
And all babies were all born by what's the miracle? What's the
Immaculate Conception?
Exactly, yeah. 7:37 this morning. Here's what's coming up between now and 10 o'clock. More of this top quality stuff. Derek McNamara is going to join us 8:10 for some rugby analysis. We've got sports pages with John Duggan.
Certainly how David Clifford was born.
8:35. Sports news at 8:40. David Herity at 9:10 is going to talk to us about the Kilkenny side of things. Mike McCarthy is going to be looking at the second rows and the rest of the pack in particular from Ireland and their trip to New Zealand, and then more hurling reaction from yesterday at 9:30. 0879 180 180 is the WhatsApp number. Kenny the dad says, I'm looking forward to day 2 of the near-death heat in London today. Ger, are we still miles away in the rugby? I mean, we were 2 weeks ago, now we're not, it turns out.
Do we deserve to be world number 1?
No, I don't think so. I think France beat us in the last game that we played. France are the best team in the world. They played Japan, we played New Zealand. You get more points for beating New Zealand than you get for beating Japan. Do you know?
What about South Africa? Are South Africa better than Ireland?
Yes, you would say.
And will New Zealand be better than Ireland in 15 months?
I don't know. It depends on their coaching ticket, right?
Yeah. And you'll have to say that South Africa at home have a significant chance of beating New Zealand
twice,
which would have a significant impact on whether or not Ian Foster is going to be.
And also, what if we got them at this time where they're collapsing and then everybody beats them now? Does that diminish the standing?
Diminish the
achievement?
The achievement on Saturday. It maybe does a little bit in terms of how you analyse it and how much importance you place on the result in the wider context of Ireland's standing in the world. I don't think it diminishes the achievement though in a historical context, and decades and decades of the All Blacks being the All Blacks and Ireland struggling to ever get one over them, and teams in general struggling to win a single test in New Zealand. So I think in the historical context, I think that's solid, and that's always going to stand the test of time. It's just how important is it going to be in 15 months, and I was very, very reluctant to kind of think that way since Saturday, because in its own right it's a brilliant achievement, and also it's the end of the season. And of course we do it with every single sport. After Limerick win on Sunday, we're like, can they win next year? After Manchester City bottle at the Champions League, can they win the Champions League next year?
Really interesting, right? The Limerick thing was really, really interesting to listen to the lads coming on giving out to you guys, and the fans the night before talking to them, come on, we've just won it. John Kiley immediately was like, look, none of those lads are retiring. There's 4 in a row. There's straight away he was like, we're at it now. We're in the middle of this. This is not the end. And it doesn't feel like it's the end at all.
It does not.
And the players might be like, give us a break, but they don't really think that. I think they're thinking, yes, but I'm not going to tell anybody that.
Yeah.
John Kiley's like, yeah, absolutely. There's history right here for these guys.
I think, John Kiley did say yesterday, I think that he's just happy to not have that conversation right now. But one of the reasons why he's happy to not have that conversation right now is because that gets him into manager speak again, and that gets him into thinking about next year, and he doesn't want anything to come back and bite him if he does say anything. They're in a phenomenal position. Like, he'll be quietly delighted with the manner of the All-Ireland win. All All-Ireland wins are sweet, but the manner of the players that weren't on the pitch in particular, the players that were maybe out of form or weren't fully fit as the season went on, how they did it this year, and that performance in the final, quietly he'll be thinking this thing is absolutely on.
He said Kyle Hayes got injured in the last training session as well.
Yeah, like Friday he was saying.
Yeah.
So yeah, like the line did drop yesterday before he found out who injured Cian Lynch yesterday. Unfortunately, I just forgot to ask the question again, which is just bad journalism. But the fact that it happened so
he
so
might
close
have
to
just
it,
gone over on his ankle.
Yeah,
that's also a possibility.
Yeah,
he's out for 3 months, is what it's reported in the papers. It's ligaments down around the fibula and the tibia, ligaments that connect to the ankle. All those ligaments are kind of gone, he explained, and then he said something else about something else popping inside as well. So that was the rumour had been a burst blood vessel, but obviously that makes it worse as well. So he's out for the rest of the club season. Well, depends obviously on how long they go on. You'd have to expect that they could go deep, and maybe that's one of the things. Maybe a Limerick club winning the All-Ireland this year, I don't know if there's any impact. It doesn't have any impact with the way the season is structured now, so it should actually work out very well for all of them.
Yeah.
Oh, there's an airplane landing.
Is that coming through?
It is coming through, yeah.
Is there a gigantic drilling sound coming into your ears this morning?
We apologise for that. Daisha Dude says Kerrygold is not just Kerry. Kerrygold was made in Dungarvan for years. It was made all over the country.
Disagree with that. I mean, it says it on the name.
Well, I mean, they don't call it, Dungarvan gold.
Exactly, and that I think refutes your point pretty substantially.
Owen is clearly reluctant to expose the Yarra elders, says Niall. We'll get some of the Yarra elders, won't we?
Who are, as in, on the fact-finding mission, who is Yarra Elder number one, though? Because you don't know, do you? They're nameless, faceless people.
Well, it's like L. Ron Hubbard, right?
Yeah.
The original Kerry Elders, like, dead 600 years.
Yeah, and
it's just been passed down. So you need the modern day equivalent of Tom Cruise, basically.
That's it. And
who's the high thetan of...
The whole point is that they've always kept a low profile and have never been well known, so it's very, very hard to track down somebody you don't even know.
But how are you feeling?
I only got around to listening to the football pod yesterday from Kilmacud last week. You would definitely be feeling, and I think James Dunn, who actually did comment on this at the end, you'd be feeling a little bit more nervous after listening to that. There's a serious amount of belief around Galway, isn't there, that they can win this game at the weekend, and I think it would be stupid to think that they can't win it given what they've done all year. And Pádraig Joyce has made the point that they've been outsiders in the bookies' minds in every game bar the Leitrim game. I think they might have been favourites for the Roscommon game, to be fair, as well, but by and large his point is a sound one, that people have written off Galway all year and they have disproved the people who've written them off all year as well, and they've got better and their performances have got better, and their semi-final performance was the best performance they've put in all year, so they've peaked at the perfect time. So if you're asking me how I'm feeling nervous.
How good was their semi-final performance? Because at half-time they needed a Hawkeye decision to go their way twice for them to be level, and they'd coughed up a lot of chances that Derry had snatched at, as opposed to, being calm and taking. Like, if Kerry had played Galway in that first half and Galway had been as bad as that in the first half, I think that Kerry would have been 1-7 to 3 points up.
Maybe 7-3. I don't think 1-7-3. I don't think they gave up a goal chance in that first half, and I think the fact that they were mediocre in the first half actually makes it all the more impressive with how good they were in the second half, because the stakes had risen. I don't think that the Shane Walsh situation necessarily makes all that much of a difference. They go in down a point. I know it gives them a little boost, of course, being level pegging and all that at the start of the second half, but the fact that they managed to regroup and not panic after a pretty mediocre first half, I think is just even more impressive, and they just kept plugging away at their game plan, and it eventually wore Derry down.
Their fear must be that they're just mediocre, that they're the Galway team who were flaky in the league final and flaky against Roscommon and flaky in the last 10 minutes against Armagh, and not great in the first half against Derry. Like, they haven't got a body of work of being excellent over 70 minutes that we can rely on and go, okay, we can see them putting together a 70-minute performance, because they haven't done that yet. No, but then again, their opponents haven't either, and they'll get huge hope from the fact that it's a 35-minute team they came up against, that they are coming up against. Certainly when you look at the evidence of the last two games that Kerry have played in Croke Park, it's been
half of performance. The second half against Mayo was good. The first half against Dublin was good. Yes, there was a bit of grit, and there's a huge amount of talent in the team that allows them to come through. But I think that if you're going to use that argument against Galway, you've also got to be using it against their opponents.
I just think that Kerry have played a significantly higher level of opponent in Dublin. They've played the second best team in the country, and they've managed to touch them off, while also they really should have killed them, because score the penalty, it's game over. There's no way Dublin are coming back from that. They might, but you're just holding them off, and it's a really boring possession-based game for 45 minutes because you have a 10-point lead, and I think that's what could happen here. I think there's going to be a couple of early goals for Kerry, and this has the bang of a Mayo final in the noughties.
It's there's absolutely zero chance it's going to be like a Mayo final in the noughties because of how Galway set up, and I don't think you can get to an All-Ireland final in the modern era by being a Mayo of the noughties. Like, they were a swashbuckling team who managed to just be better than Dublin, Tyrone on a number of afternoons where they produced a classic. Like, that is not what this Galway team is. That is not what an All-Ireland finalist is in the modern era, and they will not cough up early goals. I think they proved against Derry, like their entire plan against Derry defensively, and they don't get enough credit for it because Derry were the defensive masters that day going into the game. Their plan was to stop Derry getting their early goals, because that was how they killed off teams. That's how Kerry like to kill off a team, and if they could do it against Derry, I think they can do it against Kerry on that front. It's not
like Derry have forwards though, the way that Kerry do. That's the thing. It's like, so that's grand, right? Up to now, this is a significant step up in terms of threat that Kerry face. I don't know. I can't.
Yeah, it is a better set of forwards. There's no question about that.
I do want to give that's yesterday's. I do want to give Pádraig Joyce significant credit, right? Because he's saying that he's asked about his relationship with Cian O'Neill. There's an improved defensive shape and solidity that has emanated from the decision during the off-season to enlist the services of former Kerry coach Cian O'Neill. Yeah, it is, replies Joyce when asked if the phone call to the former Kildare manager was the most important he's made during his 3 seasons at the helm. And then he goes on to say, as well as the other phone calls that I made about S&C and Bernard Dunn, I didn't realise as well, is their performance coach. The 3 of them have come in this year and have done really good. I didn't think Joyce was going to be as good a manager as he is, and the reason he's become a great manager this year is that he has listened to outside help and he has sought the best available to him. There's a lot of people retrospectively going, it was great of him to come out and say that we were going to win the All-Ireland, but like, that wasn't great, because it didn't look like they were capable of doing it. What's great is actually being humble enough to go, we've got this wrong, or we need to inject something different to get to the next level. And I would say that's what gives Galway people hope, that he's learned massively over the 2 years. And he's really progressed to a point now where it's like, okay, I'm not the be all and end all of this. This is going to be a collective. You look at Limerick, John Kiley's like, I don't do the sessions. Paul Connert does the sessions. The S&C is amazing. The medical team are great. And sorry, he went on there to say, are Cian and I bosom buddies? Probably not. We get on well together. I respect his decisions. We have had loads of rows, don't get me wrong. That's part and parcel of it. That's why we got him in, to get that little bit of experience we were lacking as a group, and that I was lacking probably, but he's been exceptional for us, as have Jonathan and Bernard.
Yeah, like, I can't imagine having Cian Lynch as your number 2 is a straightforward thing to do. Like, if you want to stay comfortable in what you're doing as a manager, you don't bring Cian O'Neill in. Like, we've seen him have rows on the sideline with Eamon Fitzmaurice in the past, and his ability to challenge the manager is probably what makes him such a great member of a backroom team. And maybe that's what he needed more of when he was manager of Kildare. Maybe he needed another Cian O'Neill to go at him on the sideline a bit more. And that's what probably makes their group such, I don't know, so ripe for growth, if you want to use that phrase. Like, and when they tell the story of Pádraig Joyce, if they win on Sunday, the tendency will be to go back to that Galway Bay FM interview and say, he said they were going to win the All-Ireland, and he did it.
Yeah.
Actually, no, there was a huge setbacks, and the story is far less linear than that.
And it's actually the opposite of that. He was going to win it with swashbuckling football that he played in the 98-01 season, right? But actually, what's happened is, in the middle of it, he's had a road to Damascus conversion and got a lot of people in and got the best of what was there previously and brought their own stuff to it, which is, I think, the best part. And actually is testimony to him and the lack of ego that you need to have when you're on course or something and you go, we're wrong here, lads. How do we fix this? And you get people in who are from the outside and you go, you tell us. what you think we need to do. That's really, really encouraging.
What I'm interested in as well is when that sort of eureka moment actually hit. Like, you would imagine it was before the season started, but sitting in Croke Park watching that Division 2 final this year, there was no evidence that that road to Damascus conversion was actually going to lead them to this Sunday. And I'd be very confident now in saying that was just because they had Mayo in a few weeks.
Well, Mike McCarthy said that. Yeah.
And that's probably the reality of what happened there. But certainly on that occasion, I guess they were just smart. They showed literally nothing. And maybe like Mayo were in action that afternoon as well and showed nothing. And as it turned out, I mean, that was probably close enough to what they were going to show in the championship. So you can read into what you see sometimes, especially when you get an opportunity to play in Croke Park. But this is a different Galway. And that is what kind of makes you more nervous as a Kerry fan, is that this ascension to this level has happened very recently. This isn't like I know they got promoted from Division 2, but it's not like we saw this like nakedly in front of us during the league. This feels like a summertime story, and you just don't know where it's going to end up for them.
No, but whatever they have, Paddy Talley is the equivalent
of course.
That whole story we've just been talking about from a Galway perspective. He's the Cian O'Neill figure, the road to Damascus conversion, and they also have the best forward in the country, who has 2 weeks further fitness into him. And I don't know, Clifford scoring 12 points. That's the figure, isn't it? Morris Fitz scored 12. Darragh Kinnagy scored 12. Isn't that right in All-Ireland finals? Yeah,
but like, I mean, Shawnee Shea would probably be more likely to get to the 12, wouldn't he?
Because of the freeze
and the 45s. But like,
maybe there'll be a penalty that he's this time. I'm just going to not against you. Not against it. I'm taking this.
It's O'Shea versus Shane Walsh, actually. Shane Walsh as the top scorer as well this weekend. They both are within reaching distance of winning the GA's Golden Boot. Not that that's an award or anything.
They should have one, right?
They should.
Two individual.
Yeah, you can't be doing that.
Shifty Lad says, imagine farm life in February. In reality, I'm with you though, Ger. Small holding and be self-sufficient would do me. Happy Tuesday. And Shane says, this Sunday's game will resemble the 2014 final. Two teams playing cautiously, mirroring each other.
I was looking at this the other day. Kerry were actually outsiders for that 2014 final, so like that was on the odds, and they really did a job on Donegal that day, because I just had it in my head that maybe they were favourites and they were just about holding their nerve, but no, beating Dublin really had Donegal installed as favourites. And as we said last week in the show, the last 3 times that Dublin have been beaten, the team that have taken them out in the semi-final ended up losing the final. So that is just another factor that would make you a little bit nervous. That high of Dublin.
Who had Kerry beaten in the semi that year?
That was Limerick, Mayo in Limerick.
Oh yeah, okay, all right.
So there was a bit of a high off that, I presume.
It should have been, yeah. John Coffey says, anyone else nearly die on the hill from the heat on Sunday? It did look very hot.
Wouldn't have liked to have been there, no.
I can only imagine what the pinkness was like in the aftermath. Shifty Lad says, is it bad or is it just me that only 1 week after hurling the Gaelic is on? No time to embrace either this week. Yeah, the position of the hurling championship and the speed at which it's been played off was obviously a focus of Donal O'Cusack on the Sunday game. A lot of debate about this. Some people saying, yeah, it's great that he's representing the hurling folk, and then loads of other people finding reason to find fault in it. I could disagree with most of the reason to find fault in it. I thought it was really interesting that he was critical of the scheduling of the All-Ireland Hurling quarter-final. Was it played at 1:30 on Saturday? Was that what he said?
Yeah.
This was because the URC final, the rugby, was on that day, and RT are committed to broadcasting that as part of their rights deal. They've obviously partnered up with the is the URC, the Ultimate Rugby Championship, is it?
It is URC.
Yeah. And United Rugby Championship. Yeah, it's going to take off, definitely will. And they're like, they have a streaming or operation with URC, and so therefore they must have been committed to it. I don't know why they couldn't have just stuck it on News Now, because it was 2 South African teams that, you know, normally you see figures tweeted out about the viewership figures for like whatever sport they put on, but I didn't see the tweet with those figures telling us how many people tuned in on a Saturday afternoon to watch 2 South African teams play on an Irish TV station. It's funny that, isn't it? Like the taxpayers' money being spent on this, and it's like, no, we've got to fix the All-Ireland Hurling quarter-final, otherwise it won't be on TV. You could have given it to Sky, you know? I mean, that would have been a separate issue that people would have had problems with, even though it's like cost a tenner now to get whatever you want on Now TV. But I don't know, it was interesting that they didn't delve into that a little bit further in the Sunday game.
Yeah, like I mean, it's an interesting one. I do think that there's going to be like a little bit of time here where we probably won't get like a full conclusion to this answer until the end of the club season, and we kind of see what the cost benefit is, and will the club season be more vibrant than ever, and all that. I'm not sure it will. Like, will they make use of? Will every county be making use of the early start time for their championships in their county? Like, I guess like only time will tell on that front. Like it does feel alright that we are going quickly from final to final here this week in particular, and there wasn't much kind of lead in time to the hurling final, which you might have wanted. And I do think that Donalogue does have a point around replays. Just I think maybe a replay and then a penalty shootout, it might be the way to decide these games, certainly when it comes to provincial finals and All-Ireland semis and finals, and maybe the quarters as well. Other than that, like, it's been fairly full throttle and it's been enjoyable, hasn't it? Like, the fare that we've got in both codes has been really good. Like, the month of August being idle from a sports media standpoint isn't ideal, but like, we're just only one stakeholder in the whole thing. Like, that's where Donalogue is talking from as well, is that he's talking as a member of the media. Like, I know obviously he's a great hurling man and he has huge experience at intercounty and club level, but he is also speaking as part of being a Sunday game pundit, and like, we are just one tiny section of a massive conversation here around who actually needs to benefit from this.
Well, there was loads of people saying, the club players ought to be delighted about this because that's going to fix everything for us and we're going to have games in good sunshine and we'll be able to go on our holidays. So we'll see. It was interesting that they didn't actually put up the figure for the attendance at the game either. They just said full house. So is the full house no longer 82,000? It's just interesting that, like, the previous week they'd put up a figure for the Dublin Kerry game, which was 74 something, was it?
Yeah, 74, 76 or something, I don't know.
And I don't know, was that a full house?
No, I don't know. I've seen them put up full house before in Croke Park.
But they always had a number underneath it, didn't they?
Maybe they did.
82,013 or whatever. It was always like a, yeah.
I'm not sure.
I thought they always. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong.
You think that they?
I don't know. Is the capacity no longer 82,000? I'm not sure.
Maybe. Like, it was very easy to get a ticket for Sunday, is the other thing.
Is it as easy to get tickets for this Sunday?
I don't think so. Not yet, anyway. It might loosen up a little bit as the week goes on, but I think the demand is pretty high. Not as high as if Dublin or Mayo were in it, but still high.
Yeah, but although Dublin didn't sell out Croker unless they did for the semi-finals. What's that? Somebody said it was the lowest attendance for a Dublin Kerry match for 20 years. Like, I guess this all feeds into the split season too. The notion that people are on holidays and they're missing stuff, and you're coming back from holidays. It, like, whatever about being able to access the games through GAA Go, it's not the same when you're on holidays and the stuff is happening back at home, and you're not entirely au fait with it. The other thing is that it is obviously competing with everything else that's on in the world. Like, it would have been very interesting to see what would happen if this was a World Cup summer, like it should have been. So the World Cup final should have been last week or the week before.
Yeah.
It's possible that they would have had the All-Ireland Hurling final up against a World Cup final.
Or Kerry Dublin up against the World Cup final.
Probably, yeah. So I guess you have to move that then, and then it's was the World Cup final always a 4, or is it moved? So anyway, it's not going to be an issue. Well, it will be an issue obviously for the Euros if Ireland qualify. They will be going up against them too.
Yeah.
So
I don't know. Like, it does feel that August will feel a little bit dead, but at the same time, is that not worth it if the club season is revitalised and the club players, the 95% of the players around the country have a far more positive experience with the GAA, a far less, I don't know, just a less grim experience with Gaelic games. Like, is that not what the whole point was? The whole point that they moved it was not to try and gain exposure, and they suddenly shot themselves in the foot. The whole point was that it was to make the club season a better season.
I just really think that if the club season came first, it would make more sense for all sorts of reasons.
Yeah. Like, but obviously then you're playing your All-Irelands in October, November.
The end of October is fine.
Yeah. Like, I wouldn't be against it either. Just like I'm not against seeing how this plays out and seeing what we're looking at the end of the year. Like, I do personally like the long lead into an All-Ireland final and maybe even the semi-finals as well. But like, is that also kind of like an elite mindset that we're like, it's only now that we're properly having this conversation where we're like, you know what, it's Limerick and Kilkenny and Kerry and Galway that need all this time and attention and weeks off and column inches dedicated towards it. And you know what, whatever happens early in the season, they can play week to week.
Michael Meehan's point though about the schools being full of bunting and excitement if the All-Ireland's in September/October, that's a very important visibility is hugely important when it comes to sucking people into wanting to do this thing, and you don't know what the long-term repercussions of this are. Like,
yeah, maybe.
We'll see.
Like, it's very, very hard to quantify that argument as well. Like, if you are part of the winning team and you're in school, Sam Maguire will come to your school.
Yeah,
like, so it's just the losing county in a final that we're talking about here. 2 counties in Ireland whose school children are going to be lost to the GEA forever because they couldn't put up, they couldn't make good luck cards. Like, I see, it's nice. We all have those great memories of those All-Ireland weeks. Like, I just want to see this play out. I really just want to see this play out and see at the end of the year, are we actually, is the feedback from clubs that actually it's made no difference? And I should say, if it's made no difference or minimal difference, then of course you push the All-Irelands back a month. But if there are real positive steps towards a better club experience for the club hurler and footballer, then I think that's a pretty compelling case to keep it close to the way it is.
Patrick Coleman says the hurling final was 2 weeks too early, and there should be 2 weeks between the hurling and the football final. Maybe that's all. The only tweak is that
maybe it's just a few
back.
weeks. Just a few weeks could make a bit of a difference. Yeah.
Okay, so obviously we didn't talk about the golf just yet. We might chat about that a little bit later through the sports pages. David Herity has taken the cash. He's signing up with Live Golf. American golf commentator David Herity.
Yeah, we've got David Herity on later, not David Herity.
Donald Trump says they should take the money, and the golfers should take the money and join up with the Saudis.
If only his golf course was hosting a PGA event rather than a live event.
It's interesting, isn't it? That's I wonder, is there a source of, or is there an opportunity? Is there a hustle for Donald Trump to take some cash, much cash? How much cash to get him to support this? So you're now on the side of Donald Trump when you sign up for Live as well. You've decided that.
It's like I would have thought that the 9/11 argument would have been one that would have been quite persuasive to someone like Donald Trump, but maybe he's not a true American. Like, there's also talk that Charles Barkley could be going to Live.
Oh yeah,
have you heard this?
No, as a pundit.
I'm pretty sure.
He's not got the worst golf swing of all time. Is that not the thing about Charles Barkley? He's like literally he
did lose like a golf bet to Aaron Rodgers recently, didn't he, at a celebrity golf event? But like, just as another personality. So I mean, maybe it's like a Donald Trump in apprentice mode, who's also kind of bought into the Live event, and that's just what they're going for. But Flaherty's a big draw, well liked in the States. He's probably more liked in the States than he is over here, I feel.
He'd retired though, largely, hadn't he? Hadn't he largely finished up? He wasn't on week-to-week broadcast anymore, as far as I know. Okay.
He still needed to quit his current job, obviously. I hadn't realised that he wasn't on week-to-week, but...
I'm sorry, I'm out of the David Herity career loop. So, Charles Barkley. This is Charles Barkley's swing. For those of you who are listening on radio, it is like...
Oh, wow.
It's one of the worst swings. It went viral in 2008 when it was pretty difficult to go viral unless you were the Boom Goes the Dynamite kid. And so yeah, he's changed now. It's got much better apparently. But yeah, so that, I mean, is he going to be the thing that draws? What's going to happen here is obviously there's going to be enough money that everybody's going to decide they're going to make peace. Because that's the only way that it continues. And they'll have their 8 or 10 Live Golf events, and then there'll be 8 or 10 PGA Tour events, and there'll be 3 big European Tour events, and that's it.
Unless, of course, Live are as ruthless and as scary MFers as their owners really are, and their entire intention is actually to destroy the current power base in golf. They will not stop at the idea of having an entertaining golf field with entertaining pundits and good figures. They actually want to destroy the PGA Tour, and maybe their move to get Henrik Stenson the other day is indications of that. Like, why do you want Henrik Stenson on your tour? Like, is it not just to destroy the Ryder Cup?
Pretty much. Well, it's not to, it's to, like, so we will destroy the Ryder Cup unless you do this for us, unless you like fix this, and sure, just take our money for the Ryder Cup. Like, the money will fix everything. Money cures everything.
Ryder Cup played in Saudi Arabia.
I mean, yeah,
it doesn't like it,
or at a Saudi Arabian owned golf course. Do you know, like that's also what could happen here. Adrian Kelly says the thing with hurling is there's only 9 teams and they're playing each other since January. How long more do they want to play into the year? Well, I mean, you know, the whole notion of leagues. Anyway, look.
Yeah, John Colley was saying that he feels a bit sorry that the leagues are being devalued in hurling. And it's kind of hard to see how you actually add value to it over the course, as you say, of like 6-7 months.
You can't.
Yeah, it's hard, and I think that's a really good point. Like the intercounty season is long as it is. Like it's not like it's a short season. It's just that the championship feels short.
River Wolf says there's too much GAA on the TV. It's making people fed up. For an amateur game, it's on way too much.
One thing I would say is that when they bring the LGFA and Camogie Association into the tent, they should try and push those out into August if possible, because they've really got swallowed up by everything over the last few weeks. It felt like the football semi-finals were okay because they had their own day on Saturday, but it felt like the previous week when the Dubs got knocked out, just like such a non-event. Maybe because I was like so dialed into Kerry Dublin or something, but it felt even in the national consciousness that was like...
Well, it's a massive story. It's the end of it.
Huge
it's the end
story.
of a team that was like 4 in a row or 3 in a row, and it just disappeared.
Yeah, it did, and I think that maybe pushing them out to a different month could be really positive for them if the GA decide to continue with this.
Do the opposite split season for them.
Yeah.
Now, and any of the players who are going to Australia, I think maybe you just have to give up on the Australian players at this stage. All right, if you want to get in touch, 0879 180 180 is the WhatsApp number. A reminder, OTB AM brought to you live each morning by Gillette Labs for an effortless finish to your day. A couple of other stories we'll get to a little bit later on in the show. But up next, we're talking rugby. Derek McNamara, who has been a hit over the course of the trip to New Zealand, is outside and ready to go. A reminder, of course, that Braeburn Coffee is now the official coffee partner to OTB. Every week we're giving one lucky winner, one lucky viewer, €100 voucher to spend on some Braeburn coffee goodness at an Apple Green store near you. To enter, just check out @OffTheBall on Twitter. Like and retweet our Braeburn competition post and you're in the draw. Owen has both the Braeburn coffee mugs over on his side of the desk, so I can't even demonstrate it for you yet. Oh, Johnny, 2 mugs. There you go.
Yeah.
Braeburn Coffee is Apple Green's new premium coffee brand that offers customers the best coffee experience on the road. It's available now at 30 locations nationwide. As I said, up next, Derek McNamara, Sports Asset Management, for the numbers behind Ireland's historic series victory. First, here's Keith Wood chatting about Ireland's massive win. Back after these.
We shouldn't fear anyone. And we shouldn't fear ourselves either, because ourselves being the not great performance in the first match, we shouldn't fear that we're able to turn that around. And that's one of the things I really liked, was the structure of this tour was so bloody awkward, horrible and hard that it mirrors what a World Cup is like. So, I take an awful lot from it. And I do think a lot is different because of that.
Does it annoy you when, like what Matt alluded to there, with people saying that we've peaked too early and we've been here before, and similarly people trying to underplay, the sense of winning matches? Maybe people who aren't necessarily rugby fans, but there's a sense among a certain cohort of people that they don't want to give this its due. That kind of
it drives me absolutely mad. I've heard people saying that they're only friendly matches, which just gives a fairly high lack of understanding of what touring in rugby has been and what it has been for over 100 years. The magnitude of what's been done is pretty extraordinary, like truly extraordinary. And it is for a moment in time. And my sons were asking me at the final whistle as to, why was I so excited? I said, because it's history. And watching history unfold in front of you is pretty phenomenal, especially when it's going your way. And so I think the players have to park. They have to enjoy it. Of course they do. They have to enjoy it. They have to enjoy it out there. They have to enjoy it when they come home. They have to have a proper break when they come back in again. It has put a huge target on their back. And I would hope that this particular group will relish the target and say, that's fine. We've put our hands up. We've done what we wanted to do. Like, what was the alternative? To not play as well as they can play and lose it so that they wouldn't do it, so that they wouldn't peak within World Cups. Well, who's to say it's the peak? We just know it's the highest level that we're at the moment. But who's to say that that's the Everest of this group? So I just think it leads open to a fantastic 12 months ahead, definitely with expectation. But as Matt said, again, and it's nice to kind of hear it coming from another perspective, there's still going to be an expectation of ups and downs, because rugby is awkward. Difficult game, can hinge entirely.
OTB AM. This is OTB Sports Radio.
Off the ball's the best. Number one.
It's the GOAT of sports apps.
Talk about the greatest of all time. Nathan, you know Big Joe. Big Joe's the greatest of all time. He's the GOAT. We know it. Every single time. Yes. Yes.
It's tough going. It's tough for my ego. I'm going to say I'm the Djokovic of this scenario.
I love it. Love it.
This is OTB Sports Radio. Download the OTB Sports app now.
OTB AM.
With Gillette. Get into your flow with the new Gillette Labs Razor with exfoliating bar.
All right, Derek McNamara of Sports Asset Management is with us to talk to us about the third test. It's good to be having these conversations after a victory and history as opposed to pummeling.
Yeah, because that's what we thought at the start, right? We were a bit concerned about how it was going to go, but here we are.
Owen was always glass half full, in fairness to him. He is a C when it comes to this.
Yeah, I can predict the future.
Yeah, I think we were in this kind of same boat. I think the two of us.
Yeah.
We've just been brought down by your man.
Absolutely, the misery. Maybe you'll be right in the end. Maybe you'll be kind of like drinking Irish tears next November. Is that your plan?
No, November doesn't matter anymore.
Yeah.
We can play the B team the 3 games in November.
Sorry, I meant November 2023.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, the bear is officially poked. Anyway.
Or broken.
Or broken, yeah, most definitely. Yeah. I think we're going to look into that in a little bit more detail now. But I was thinking we might look into a couple of different areas. Refereeing first, if that's okay. And then we might look into New Zealand. And then we might get onto our favourite discussion, which is Jonathan Sexton.
Yeah, okay.
That's all right.
So the refereeing, overall, the minutes on the pitch figure is really interesting because it's an 85, 87, it's a 101 minute game, it turns out.
Yeah, so this is something that I started looking at in the Lions tour, actually, which was just, frustrating looking at how long the players are on the pitch for. It's the kind of one thing that the referees have the biggest impact on, and it's something that's not really being looked at. And what that is we take when the players go onto the pitch and the first ball is kicked off, and we stop the clock once it goes to half time, and then we take from the second half is kicked off to the end, and we basically say, okay, how long was that? And the reason why that's important is because anything longer than, say, 100 minutes, it's an extra 20 minutes that those players are on the pitch. Not necessarily that important for strength and conditioning and the way in which players play, but it's more, that time could be spent for advertising or it could be used for analysts talking about the game at half time. That's where that time has been taken away. So that's money, that's income, that's revenue for rugby, which is being kind of ignored, or at least being let go by referees taking their time in the game. But in this game last weekend against Ireland, New Zealand, the third test, it was, you got to hold your hand up and say well done to the lads that were refereeing. They caught the Sam Cane tackle off the ball early on. They got the Ger Eoin offside at 25 minutes. And they got a number of very accurate decisions that were actually infringements in the game, but they let the game play for a little while the video referee went back and actually checked whether or not they were infringements or not. And it's very, very, very hard to do. But the first test, the first game was 101 minutes. The team the players were on the pitch. The second game was 109 minutes, and then the third game was 99.
They're huge differences. Like 10 minutes in one game, it's like 10% extra time. Yeah, already over a game that's supposed to be 80 minutes.
Yeah, well, we're going to be here for 20 minutes. It's half the time that would be taken away from Keith Wood or Brian O'Driscoll or whoever it is that's going to be on. That's valuable to them. It's valuable to sport.
I would also say that some teams will want games to be 109 minutes, like South Africa in the second test last year.
Oh no, this is a different stat. So what we're looking at, we split the game into, there's obviously 3 or 4 different ways of looking at it. The first one, this one is just minutes on pitch.
Yeah, but I think some teams want that. I think South Africa want a scrappy, long, boring game to drag you into the deep water, and then when you're not paying attention, poke you in the eye.
Yeah, no, but watch what I say here. No, South Africa are a great team. They wouldn't have anything bad to say about South Africa at all. No, look, there's a significant difference. This is basically identifying time where the referee calls stop to the play, and those stoppages are due to substitutions, due to injuries, or due to TMOs. So this indicates,
or a scrum collapsing and the referee losing control of that.
No, because the usually when a scrum collapses, the referee will continue the time playing. So there's this time, which is the minutes that they're on pitch, then there's the actual minutes of the game, which is 80 minutes, and then there's minutes where the actual ball is in play, which is I don't know, I'm here. I think it's around 30 to 35 for each of these games.
Okay.
So there's a specific difference between those, and we calculate all three of them. So this is just a representation of what the referee are doing and their impact on the game.
And stylistically, what they like to do is to let the decision be made upstairs and call them backward as opposed to trying to.
And it's a recurring. And the other thing that we would identify is the number of completed scrums as well, and how long those scrums take to actually complete. Because that's obviously where a lot of the problems are. And I always get really, really frustrated when I see the first scrum of the game and there's the referee's blowing a free kick or a penalty without having a word with the front rows.
Yeah.
So it's what we're trying to do is we're trying to identify where those errors are between the referees and how we might be able to help World Rugby in identifying those.
There does seem to have been a fairly crucial red card missed. Andrew Porter has been cited. It'll be interesting to see what happens, but like, he's going to be banned because it was a red card offence. Like,
he doesn't care.
He doesn't. But I think it might have had a material impact on the outcome of the game.
Yeah. But if you actually watch it and slow it down, the rules of the law. Now, I'm not a referee, but the rules of the law say if he's stationary or moving backwards when the impact happens, is my take on it. Is that's a mitigating instance. He's not actually moving forward into the tackle to try and...
The word absorbing was used.
Yeah. So the ball carrier, it's happening in milliseconds. The ball carrier is running towards him. He's just staying in his ground. It's basically a simple way of saying that player ran into him rather than the defender running into the player's face.
Yeah.
Now, neither are good. And they're trying to stamp it out. But, I think...
So you think there's a chance he gets off?
No, anytime it goes to a citing committee, you're usually going to get some sort of ban. They won't bring all those people together just for the sake of it.
Yeah. In that instance, it should have been a red card.
Maybe. I'm not going to complain.
No, I just think that, like, if it had happened to us, we would be complaining.
Yeah, but like, it's look, it's a very small part of the game. In reality, these things happen all the time. If you look at all the instances in the game that were considered somewhat dirty or off the cuff, like, this is one out of maybe in the whole series. There's probably 15 or 20 of these that happen overall in the game where there's somebody standing at the ruck and somebody comes in, they drop their shoulder. These things happen all the time.
Yeah, okay.
So it's not. I wouldn't consider it that big of a deal. We
had a few of those as well, but moving swiftly on.
Yeah.
So. New Zealand, obviously, and their struggles. What kind of a performance level improvement did you see from week 2 to week 3?
Yeah, so this is we actually have a bit of a stat here just around the quality of the two performances between week 1 and week 2, and we might show that slide. There, so basically, what we see here is that their rucking has remained stationary.
So just explain the slide to us for anybody who's looking at it here. So you've got week 2 and week 3 mapped out.
Yeah, week 2 and week 3. So we've got the quality of the two teams and based on skill sets. So rucking, carrying, tackling, passing. The important things.
And this is just the New Zealand map, right?
This is just the New Zealand between week 2 and week 3. So the dotted line or the double lines is week 2, and the solid line is week 3. And you can see that there is a marked improvement in their carrying, but their rucking and their tackling has remained the same, which it takes up probably 40% of what they do, and their kicking was kind of slightly slightly better. Their line out got a lot worse, and their passing got a lot worse between weeks 2 and week 3, and that kind of fits into kind of like the overall prognosis of what happened with New Zealand. And if we were just to look at it from, say, the first 25 minutes of the game and the mistakes, you hear the New Zealanders leading up to their game, they were talking about unforced errors, but like, when you're talking about unforced errors, we look at everything. We look at unforced errors, we just call them errors because we look at whether it's an error at the breakdown or not. But if we were just to take the first 25 minutes, you got 7 minutes, there's an up and under that went too long, then there's a turnover from the line out, that preceding line out, then there's a missed penalty that happens at 10 minutes, a knock on from a pick and go, that's 13 minutes, 16 minutes, missed pass that was a really good setup. Then at 24 minutes, Rico Leone butchers a 4-on-3. He then gets turned over by Josh van der Fleer, and then gives a penalty away for being offside, which is one of the penalties that the referees found. All of this, including what we have on screen, and if we look at the poor breakdown, there's also the tackling without the ball, which is something we talked about a couple of weeks ago, which is New Zealanders tackling the ball without the ball, which means that there's gaps for the switch play or for so this, along with the repetitiveness of, say, like their kickoffs, for instance, they kept on going to, I think it was Bundyaki that kept on catching it.
Yeah.
And it was just like they kept on doing the same thing over and over again. There was no change in their method. There was nobody there telling them, okay, this isn't working, lads, let's go to something else. And then also something that was very apparent in this game was Smith, or the scrum half, skipping the pods of three. So there's 3 pods of 3 guys that are standing maybe 5 or 6 meters away. And what he'll do is he'll usually hit the middle guy, because the middle guy then will crash it up, and or you can bring it out the back, or you can pop it onto either one guy left or right of him. So there's 4 or 5 options for that player that in the middle. But what Aaron Smith kept on doing was just skipping the pod altogether and hitting the last guy. And it was just like, he looks like he's doing that because it looks good. And then their 10 as well, Barrett, banana kicking the ball into touch when there was absolutely, that's a kick where if you're really close to the touchline, you'll try and put a bit of spin on it so that it'll go out, further. All of these things are, they're not necessary. Some of these are obviously necessary, but some of them aren't necessary to do. And it just, that Rico Liani errors basically forces the other players to try and do more in the game, which then, I won't pass to him because he's made so many mistakes. And that, like, you see this in schools rugby, you see it in professional, international, you see it all the way up. That, along with, their kicking as well was poor, but it lowers confidence. And then what happens is that then breeds predictability. And that's the worst thing that you can have in rugby, is being predictable, because teams will figure you out very, very quickly. And all of this together just has more of a problem about what's happening in New Zealand rugby. I think we've talked about it before, but if you look at what's happened, from the club perspective, is that they've lost their biggest opposition. Why are France doing so well? Why are France doing so well?
Well, France invested loads of money and time in young players like 10 years ago when they won the rights to host the World Cup, and they've got somebody in charge, and they've got a rugby plan that puts the international team at the very top of that, and that also allows the clubs to do whatever they want, and it's hugely competitive at club level.
But it's more so that they have 2 fully fledged professional competitions that are playing week in, week out, and that are building the performance of all players.
Strength and depth, yeah.
Yeah, like players, coaches, individuals involved in rugby are living, breathing in a professional era, and it's evolving the sport and evolving anybody that's in it. So they've got French teams to play against, they've got teams against Europe, and now they've got teams against South Africa. So all of that collective is going to is invested in, and is going to get better. New Zealand are out in the middle of on their own now. They don't have anything like that. The Australians are press refresh for the 3rd time now. So I don't know. I think it's a pretty serious problem for New Zealand, especially with that CDC money that's come in.
Right. So
you're going to expect money.
You think this could be the start of a dark age for New Zealand rugby?
No, like they've still got amazing players, but like myself, I would look at a lot of content around coaching and how players are taught, and how different aspects of coaching and training. Like all of that used to come from New Zealand. You know what I mean? All of that used to come from Graham Henry's time, just even going to contact. And
the New Zealand Sport Institute was like a legendary kind of, this is an example of how all sport all around the world should be done. And maybe the rest of the world has caught up with that?
I think so. I think it's, I just don't see that content coming out in New Zealand anymore. I don't see the what's happening at the breakdown. Like what they're happening in the breakdown. They were absolutely miserable at the weekend at the breakdown.
Here's the thing, right? A combination of Joe Schmidt and Scott Robertson could fix that really quickly. Like what we're talking about there is not players who have bad skills, it's players who have been badly coached. Gordon Darcy said on Friday that he thought the team was really badly coached, and I think everybody has come to that conclusion, including the people who run New Zealand rugby and all of the New Zealand media. So that bit is fixable. The bit about them not having South African opposition, that's a much longer global problem that somehow they're going to have to fix.
I would see that as a bigger issue than anything else. I would see the fact that they're only playing against themselves to a certain extent. They're only playing 15, 16 or 18 games, I think it was this year, that they played in the Super Rugby competition. So they're only playing half the year. So they need to be able to be anyway, sure, we'll see what happens. But it's definitely an error or an issue or something to be.
You think it's wider than Foster?
Oh, big time! Yeah. Much bigger than that. Yeah.
However, in the short term, there are fixes, right? The stuff that you're talking about there, like make sure the pods get hit up, make sure the breakdown is good. That vastly improves the performance.
Yeah. But I'm like that. So there's a couple of different ways of playing. There's I think we've spoken about this before, but you've got your game plan to try and get the best players that you have getting them into positions where they can get the ball to make it biggest impact, or you've got very process-driven coaches that basically follow patterns and follow. We need to be here. We need to go this. We need to do that. And then you've got a hybrid where sometimes you've got really, really good coaching. You've got really, really good players, and you can try and merge the two of them together.
I think that if Joe Schmidt had a bunch of players like Will Jordan in his team and Artie Sevilla, he would give them more freedom than he gave to the Irish players. So I would be very worried for the rest of the world if Joe Schmidt was to bring his process and his fascination with the breakdown and the set piece and then have those players implement those plans, because
but it could be too late for those guys, because once you're 5 or 6 minutes into a game, a lot of these guys, they're in their late 20s, early 30s. They've this is all they've known.
Well, are we not the actual the proof that it's possible to evolve and change? Because what our players knew for such a long period of time was that Joe Schmidt, you do what you're told, you be where you're supposed to be, otherwise you can feck off. Don't drop your key card. Whereas with Andy Farrell, it's like, no, we're gonna have a good time.
Yeah. Gonna have a party.
We're gonna get loaded. Yeah. So I think it's possible to change.
Oh, most definitely. And you will definitely see a bump in performance by the team once the new coaching setup comes in. But whether or not they can have a impact, look, it depends on what they're going to try and do. Are they going to try and do short, medium, or long term?
Yeah. Well,
and
it's going to be World Cup, right? It's going to be a huge target for them.
Yeah.
Of course. Yeah.
So it just makes perfect sense, doesn't it, that the coaching change is probably going to happen?
But it's not going to happen.
Then it probably will happen.
Oh, most definitely will. Yeah, you can't survive. I don't think so.
And from what you've seen of Schmidt and of Robertson, which would be a better fit given their current malaise?
I wouldn't put Schmidt in there. If it was my decision, I wouldn't. Schmidt. So I think there's rules in place in New Zealand around whether or not you have to spend at least 1 year in a New Zealand team coaching before you can become registered to be the head coach. So I think in reality they'll probably just put Robertson in because he's already been paid by the New Zealand Rugby Union, so he'll be able to put whoever he wants in.
And maybe they force him to put Schmidt in because they obviously rate Schmidt.
I don't know. Can you have two head honchos in there? I don't know.
Schmidt might decide that he doesn't want to do all the crap that comes with being the head coach and have a Stuart Lancaster style period where you get a lot of the credit, but most of the crap is handled by Scott Robertson. And then if it goes tits up, it's like, well, nothing to do with me.
I don't know. I think having two types of both of those guys are coaches, right? They try putting Joe Schmidt into the World Rugby place, and he too many suits is what I heard.
Right.
So I can't imagine Joe Schmidt sitting around waiting to see what
maybe, I don't know.
is going to try and do.
Yeah, maybe then it's just Scott Robertson, and that makes the most sense because it's his turn.
You could see Joe Schmidt going into Crusaders.
And that would also make sense. Okay, let's. The last thing we're going to talk about is Sexton.
Yeah, so this is just. I know we've been talking a lot about who is the sort of player that Johnny is and what makes him so good. And this is just, we took 5 games, his last 5 games. We didn't take the first test from the New Zealand game, but we took the 3 games in the Heineken Cup and we took the last 2 games. And we kind of categorise what he does, and you can see that 35% of what he does is carrying, so it's him taking the ball onto the line. Then 24% of what he does is passing, kicking 20%, and 14% is tackling. So this is kind of like what we're looking at as a blueprint of what it is, type of player that we want to, that we have.
And so it's when you're looking for replacements, they need to be.
Yeah, so there's another 9% of other things that he does, like turnovers and things like that. But this is just carrying. This is just showing you kind of what type of player he is. But then when we put it against the grades against all the other players in the league, and we put up the next slide, then we can show where Jonathan Sexton lies compared to the other players. So we don't have we when we grade everything, we need to have a certain number of activities to be able to clearly identify what type of player they are. So we have lots and lots of players that carry the ball. So when we average out Jonathan Sexton's, he comes 68th out of 150 of the players when it comes to carrying. Now this doesn't take into consideration how deep he is, how far away from the defence he is when he lets go of the ball. But in reality, the two things that we want to look at, I mean, you'd probably guess this, is that, he's number 1 of passing and he's number 3 of kicking. So he's really, really high in passing and really, really good at kicking. And then he's kind of middle of the park for tackling. But this is how we, if we want to figure out whether or not Crawley's the next guy up, or we want to identify if Joey Carberry, this is what we need to do, is like identify, where our other players land compared to Johnny, and figure out whether or not we can improve those players over the short, medium, long term.
Frawley's never going to play if he goes back to Leinster unless there is a change in policy, because Ross Byrne is the incumbent second string number 10, and I don't know, was it Rory O'Connor was saying Ulster, get him to Ulster for the season, and like, it's World Cup crisis mode now, or it's like
already, Jerry, you're trying to bring us down again.
I'm not. It's like we
it's 14 months.
So look at the first test.
Yeah.
When Sexton goes off, the game disintegrates.
Yeah, no, I understand that, but like, we got to remember that those players hadn't played together in an awful long time, so it could have been quite a significant part of rustiness. If we were to change that up and look at the second test, and we had the first full game of Sexton in there, I think you wouldn't see as big of an impact on the game as Sexton would have had
if somebody else had.
Yeah, I think there was a bigger breakdown in different things. There was a lot of fluky tries. There was, I think if we were to scale it back and look at it from an analytical perspective, there is a chance that we can kind of have him have less and less of an impact on the game, and because there's 15 lads on the pitch, you know what I mean, and there's injuries, and there's refereeing decisions, and there's lots of different things that happen. But if we hold our shape and we continue to plateau, like, I don't think there's any point in Ireland trying to improve any more significantly. I think they can add different things to their game and different ways of playing to their game. But I think they're at number 1 now in the world. I think it's now it's a point of leveling off our performance and staying at that level over the next 18 months, rather than trying to change anything now, like Harrington would with his swing or whatever. Why would you do that? And then, like, that's what we're looking at. We've shown progress, we've shown improvement, we've shown that we can play very well, expansive, enjoyable rugby. We don't need to do much more over the next couple of months.
Who is the out half that most closely resembles that breakdown in actions by Sexton?
Ross Byrne.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
And that's probably, is that have to do with just his Leinster education and being the understudy to Sexton?
Yeah, exactly. But like, you would see Daniel Barrett now, for instance, he would carry a lot more, so he rather than passing. So the 10 over 5 games is a very big data set. You know what I mean? This is, we can say with pretty accuracy, this is the type of player and this is how good he is. But if we were to do the same for Barrett, we would see that he carries a lot more and he doesn't pass as much. And so that's, what we're trying to do here is identify the style of play that you're playing, and then identify whether or not there's a player in, New Zealand or Australia or South Africa that would fit into this mold, rather than, it's not necessarily just about the player, it's about the position.
And who's closer to Sexton stylistically, Carberry or Frawley? I would guess Frawley.
I don't have the data. I don't.
It feels to the eye like Frawley is. I don't know why I think that. It feels like Carberry's more of a carrying out half. Maybe I'm totally wrong.
He used to be. He would have been considered carrying out half when he came out of amateur from Clontarf, but I don't know. Like, it's we've only started capturing data in the last 2.5 months, so we're only starting, like, really. So I don't have. This is just over. There's a lot of top 14 rugby in this. There's a lot of European rugby, but there's not a huge amount of international or URC data in here.
Artie Savea's performance looked amazing. Was it as amazing?
No.
Really?
No. Like, certain players do certain things, and those certain things have, like, our brains are based on recency bias. You know, when we see something and we go, oh, it's bright and shiny, it's deadly. He goes, look at that, and then that's what Artie Savea is. He's a brilliant player. Like, don't get me wrong, but he does the things like carrying the ball. That's really important. But he misses quite a lot of tackles, and he also is really poor at the breakdown. So, you know, he gives away quite a lot of penalties as well. So when you see the game and you see somebody doing something really good, you go, oh, he's a really good player. And
he's
then
got like the nicest sidestep in World Rugby.
Yeah. That's really sexy, but that's not that 40-metre carry that he made. You got to take into consideration the 3 missed tackles that he made that were, you know, 45 metres lost. That minus 5 metres has a negative impact on your team overall. So you got to take that into consideration, as well as everything else. So I'm not saying that's exactly what happened, but none of the New Zealand players played well.
And when it comes to the Irish players that we were glorifying, like, do they all stand up? Like Tadhg Byrne, for example?
Yeah, Tadhg Byrne has had handling issues in the past that he knocks the ball on, but then he goes and does an intercept on Saturday. It's amazing. So, but he would be a player that if I was to sit him down and have a chat with him, is tackling, because he's always thinking about the poaching or counter rucking. So you'll see him. He'll if he's a tackle assist, that's basically, you got the tackler, which is the first guy, and then you got a tackle assist. If he's ever the tackle assist, he won't try and stop the player. He'll just get in the way and then try and counter ruck. But that results in a negative play for you. And if it's a negative play, then the guys who are rucking tend to be going forward. But if you hit those guys behind the game line and you push them back, the guys in the pod run past the actual ball carrier, and as a result, it's easier for you to poach. So it's just one of those things that we've looked at in the past, which is, you know, who would be the best defender and who would be considered not the best defender in the Six Nations, for instance. And Tadhg Byrne, although he's a really, really good poacher and he's really good, he turns the ball over a lot. A lot of times he does make a negative tackle, which results in a loss in play. So it's only when you kind of take everything into consideration are you able to identify what type of player they are.
And you ask what the trade-off there is. Like, as a coach, do I want some of this in the game, or do I want all of this? And,
yeah, but you need poacher. You need guys that if that's the game plan that you're looking to implement. And, you know, that was one of the issues that with Leinster in the final. You know, they didn't have those poachers in the game to put La Rochelle, La Rochelle under pressure, you know.
All right, Derek, good stuff. Thanks a million.
Cheers, lads.
That's Derek McNamara been with us over the course of the last 3 tests, and hopefully we'll be back again from Sports Asset Management. If anybody wants to read your stuff or get more of it.
Yeah, right. I suppose the best way to get in contact with me is by LinkedIn, because we're just getting started, and anybody who's actually interested in this stuff, if you want to get in contact, we're looking for people to help out, and especially analysts or people that want to get involved who've never worked in sports before but have always wanted to give it a go. Get in contact.
Well, best of luck. OTB AM is brought to you live each morning by Gillette Labs for an effortless finish to your day. All-Ireland winners James O'Connor and Shane McGrath joined Richie McCormick on last night's OTB to reflect on Limerick's first ever 3 in a row. Back with papers after this.
They look like, again, that they're not done. And seeing and listen to Hegarty after the game in particular. I mean, after, you know, playing for 75 minutes in that heat, and he looked like he could have gone for another 25 minutes. And then, you know, to be as grounded and as down to earth as he was, and speak, I suppose, about the way, you know, the Dublin footballers have spoken, and Kilkenny hurlers in the past, that, you know, this is like a drug to those guys. And as I said, that's bad news for everybody else listening to him being interviewed after the game, and you know what their mindset is going to be going forward.
Yeah, Shane, those players out there are kind of rare. Like, they have that ability to, time almost moves at a different speed for them. And you got that sense watching Ger Eoin Hegarty yesterday, pretty much from the goal chance onwards. The speed of thought with which he executed that goal was sublime. And then factor in, as James mentioned, several points that he knocked over after that. Like, he seemed to be playing his own game in a way, in amongst a fantastically well-oiled machine. But he did seem to have that extra split second of time with which to make decisions, with which to get shots away, and was just exceptional, really.
Yeah, I suppose there's a few things on Ger Eoin Hegarty. I think the first thing is, I remember, I think I heard him doing an interview after about the 2018 final, in which, Limerick made the breakthrough, and I suppose, they broke that glass ceiling and they set up for the historic stuff they're after doing now, and winning the first one for them, it's always nearly the hardest, because it gives them the belief. But Hegarty did an interview after that and said while he was absolutely thrilled that they won, he was actually disappointed with his own performance in that game. And James, he's after calling out his numbers from the last 3 finals since, and it's off the charts. But this guy's playing a different game to everyone else, lads. I mean, his physicality, a lot of people know he's a fantastic footballer as well. He's an athlete, but this guy can hurl he's some stick man. I mean, we all talk about Cian Lynch's ability to flick that ball in his hand, at pace and just make it look so easy. Hegarty's doing it on a regular basis. He doesn't go full tilt all the time. He's kind of moving around, ghosting around, but he almost seems disinterested. And then he's gone, and it's too late for whoever's marking him, because you don't know when he's going to go and when he's not going to go. But I feel that just even watching him in Croke Park, that he knows when he needs to go full tilt, when he needs to go 100%, and he knows when he can just ghost around and find that space for himself. He's one of the best in the game at doing it. And even listening to guys maybe that would have marked him before. He's very difficult to mark because of his physicality, his hurling ability, but because of that hurling brain he has to find space, know when to make a run, know when to not, know when to save energy for the next run. And he's one of the most unmarkable figures in the game at the moment. No matter what way you go about trying to mark him, if you go physical.
There are so many idiots out there, so many spoofers. There's a lot of horse.
I think he's a total spoofer.
What do you mean a spoofer?
He's just bullshit.
No, Eamon, come on, don't be, no, I'm not,
yes.
No.
Right, we're going to run you through the newspaper headlines. Future's so bright. That's a picture of the Limerick lads celebrating in the Gaelic grounds yesterday. And then Premier Leader turned Cahill as new hurling boss. I wonder which of those stories will be the biggest one this time next year. Is there a possibility that he can turn Tipperary around? Certainly the talent base is there. Paddy Maher was pretty clear that there were problems that needed fixed. They fixed them. We're moving on.
Will the ends justify the means?
That was
one of the questions.
Yeah. Cian's pain was my gain. Man of the match Hegarty admits Lynch injury let him start final. Were they going to drop Gerard Hegarty? He thought they were. John Duggan, good morning to you.
No chance.
Ger and Owen, good morning. Never hoped to be dropping Hegarty.
I don't think so either.
First names on the team sheet.
But he felt it. Or he says he felt it.
Especially after the semi-final, I felt that he was due a big performance. That he was.
You're not going to drop any of that half forward line. I was actually surprised they took Tom Morrissey off when they did. But,
he was so good.
So it's a strange one. But Limerick always just had enough.
You're the Ron that I want. Ten Hag, I'll build team around Chris. My captain call can boost Maguire. I mean, would you be surprised if Harry Maguire nor Cristiano Ronaldo were playing that much for Man United next season?
Maguire will start the season. Definitely listen to Ten Hag yesterday. Maguire's going to start the season.
Is this an off-season narrative that's absolute bullshit?
No, I think they're very different situations. I think the Ronaldo situation is very different to Maguire. Just listening to Ten Hag, I think the Ten Hag soundings are that he has to say that Ronaldo is part of his plans, but I wouldn't be surprised if he's gone. Whereas what he's saying about Maguire is he's going to start at the heart of that defence alongside Lissandro Martinez at the start of the season.
And what about Rafa Varane?
I would say he's more likely to exit Manchester United than Harry Maguire.
Really?
Just based on what Ten Hag was saying yesterday.
But is that not just the whole point? Ten Hag is going to say whatever he wants, and then
no. I think that would be a weird sort of reverse psychology.
Maybe he's just giving him a chance.
I think he'll give him a chance at the start of the season.
Harry Maguire is about giving him a chance, and we'll see what happens from
there.
Might
be a season-long chance.
Yeah. Amazing. It's only around the corner. It's like the Racing Post football kick-off is next Monday. And it's got a clear run now, football, for the rest of the year.
Cahill appointed as Bonner's club hit out at Tipperary boards. Just trying to find it.
Great disgust.
Is that the words?
Yeah, the Tipperary statement last week.
Therefore, it was with great disgust to learn on social media a press release from the Tipperary County Board on Thursday, headlined by the line, Colin Bonner relieved of his duties. We find the statement unacceptable towards a man that had firstly given everything as a player in the blue and gold, and secondly was clearly enthusiastic about entering into the second of his 3-year term. He had a clear vision towards developing the current player base into the future and presented this to a 15-person management committee. That was obviously Cashel Kilcormac's Alexander Zinchenko heading to Arsenal. Maybe Tielemans. Arsenal are the busy little beavers, aren't they?
In a very good window. Very, very good window. I thought at the start things were going to go slowly, but they've clicked into gear nicely. And of course, Alexander Zinchenko, Granit Xhaka shake hands, being like, we can both play midfield and left back. and that's going to be their little click for the year.
You're back in.
What's been on back in?
You're back on the bandwagon.
Oh, I was on that bandwagon last season. That's why I'm still a broken man.
In the dark, United boss Ten Hag admits he still hasn't spoken to Ronaldo. Opens up on Fergie Maguire. Dutchman reveals why he won't buy British. Oh no, that's the Mail. That's the Irish Mail. With that, over 40,000 fans welcome History Boys home. How many are they going to do, John?
Another one anyway. I think Cork could be the team. If Cork get a bit of physicality into their ranks, I think Cork with Pat Ryan might be the team.
It could take a while, right?
It could take a while. The only team that'll beat Limerick is Limerick. It's all about hunger and Limerick and what their sense of history is. And to be honest, they've completed the set now by beating Kilkenny in the final, so they've nothing really to prove. So it's their hunger levels. The round robin is tough. Round robin is tough, to get out of. We see with Waterford, their dip. Reached the final. We all thought they were going to be the challengers this year. Round robin, if it starts going against you in the round robin, it can be difficult, but you'd have to expect Limerick will get out of it, and then they're into the All-Ireland series.
I think it's very tempting to feel that they're unstoppable at this moment, though. Like, it felt after they won the All-Ireland last year, I thought they're definitely getting to 5. And then there were moments this year where you're like, God, I'm not sure if they're going to get to 3. So, I'm still not 100% sure they will do the 4 next year because of the quality of teams around them. And I'm not necessarily sure it is Limerick that's going to beat Limerick next year. I think Galway or Kilkenny, as you say, I do think the Cork thing is a couple of years. I think the physicality aspect, that could stop to 5 rather than to 4, and then potentially Clare. I think listening to Pádraig Maher yesterday, who obviously knows a hell of a lot more than we do, I got a tone off him that it's going to be the 5 that they would probably stop rather than the 4. They'd need another year, maybe 2 years into Liam Cal before they're ready to stop them.
I think their injury profile was so horrific this year
Maybe.
that the team will be completely different without having to get the kids in, and the kids are coming that he knows really well. So I don't know.
Yeah, it's not totally like for like, but there is they will have looked at what Limerick did with a very talented under 21 crop, and they'll be thinking to themselves, why can't we be just as dominant, but why can't we kind of glean one All Ireland off that conveyor belt?
Keogh Lynch wasn't there. I think Limerick's bench was strong. They'll be very hard to knock off the perch.
All right. There's too much GAA on the TV. It's making people fed up. And Riverwolf says there are other professional sports in Ireland that should be getting more coverage. Athletics and other sports would please go easy in the GAA. It's total overkill now at this stage. 5 days out from an All-Ireland football final. We're doing too much, Owen.
Riverwolf will be happy in 10 days' time when there will be no more GAA ever.
It's definitely going away for a while.
Yeah, we can all go back to our counties and catch up with the local scene now.
We can. The Tyrone County Board put all their stuff behind a paywall as opposed to... so that's the best stuff. They don't want anybody to see that.
Yeah.
They're like, no. This is a secret.
Yeah, didn't they? I think RT managed to get one of those Tyrone games last year, didn't they? And it was a pretty good game. Maybe it was the year before. But yeah, more of that, I guess. Those Friday night club games were pretty enjoyable.
Interesting at the Open, in the aftermath of the Open, Greg Norman telling the winner he's in good company. Because, obviously Greg Norman won the Open too. 21 years since, or 29 years, however it was.
29, yeah.
Greg Norman's statement was all about Greg Norman. Well done, Cameron. You're joining the club that I'm a member of, that I blaze a trail for. It was like, wow, that nice little insight into his, this guy's great, he's the future of golf in our country. No.
He's moving, he's going to live, you'd have to think. He's going
to wait until the FedEx is over.
Yeah, and then go.
Yeah.
It's Matsuyama as well, apparently. So it's a disaster for golf. It's a crisis.
These are the ones now that actually matter. Like David Herity going, it's kind of grand, whatever. I understand. Up to this point, it's been a kind of bunch of washed up golfers.
Well, Dustin Johnson and Cameron Smith and even DeChambeau. It's beginning to get to the stage now where the players that matter are going, and it's very sad because how much fun was it for us to watch the Open for the 4 days and feel very sorry for Rory. But there was a haunted look, and I think Oliver Holt wrote about it, about Phil Mickelson last week. There was a haunted look to him, didn't go to the dinner. And there's a degree of soul setting, I think, that's been going on with these live golfers now. Not that they're going to care, but look, maybe in time they'll adjust their format and they'll end up with 72-hole tournaments and
of course they will,
and none of this team stuff, and they'll end up doing some kind of deal with the PGA, and it'll all work out in the wash. But at the moment, it's all about. I'm fascinated to see what the approach is going to be about the world ranking points, because Martin Slumbers from the RNA was scathing about live last week. So, but with Smith moving. this is not good. Cameron Smith tumbles down the rankings because he can't get any ranking points, and then he's got to qualify for the Open in a few years. That's not great, you know.
He'll be exempt, obviously, from the Open for
that's right, for 5 years. But say the Players' Championship that he won, like he's going to be banned from the tournament he won this year.
Yeah,
that's not great.
Anything else going on, JD?
I don't know if you want to talk about the rugby, but I think I've probably done all my talking about that on Twitter the last few days.
What was the response like?
Significant. And I stick by my guns. I was on News.
What did you tweet?
I just said it was the greatest day in our sport since the Romania game in 1990, and got a significant response. So,
go on.
Didn't Matt Williams agree with you last night?
Yeah, I mean, for 100 years we've been the plucky underdog nation in sport, and there's only so far that can bring you. So 2011 against Australia, we have a brilliant win in the group stage of the World Cup, lose to Wales. Win at the Giant Stadium, we don't even get further than that in terms of winning another game of that World Cup. Now the heat was a factor. We beat Italy and Lille in a dead rubber. We're only going to get so far. So when I'm thinking of Irish sport conquering the world, you think of Katie Taylor, Kelly Harrington, Padraig Harrington and Rory. For Irish rugby team to be number one in the world rankings, to go down to New Zealand and beat one of the great institutions in world sport, and for people then to be calling it a friendly, I thought that was insulting. I also would suspect there might be a degree of cultural resentment towards rugby. And I'm not a rugby man, I'm a soccer man, and I went to GA Christian Brothers School. But to see New Zealand lose their first Test series in the professional era, I think it is a massive achievement. And people might go, well, where are the flags outside the windows and all that kind of thing? Maybe sometimes sport is consumed in different ways. When you see, I know this game is on Sky, but when you see Six Nations matches or the TV ratings for them, it's like 1 million people. So I just think we ought to be getting behind the Irish team. And that's why some of the commentary has disappointed me. Maybe some people felt I was engaging in hyperbole, but to say it's just a friendly and just to dismiss it like that, going down to New Zealand and win the Test series hasn't been done in the professional era, hasn't been done since France in 1994. The Australians and South Africans did it. And we gush about the Lions so much, the British and Irish Lions. We talk about all the great tours in New Zealand. They haven't won a tour down there since 1971. And New Zealand can't afford to lose Test series. Ian Foster's not going to be the coach next year of the World Cup. Aaron Smith was crying in the anthem and trying to tell me it didn't matter. Look at the start of the second half. So for this team at the end of the season to lose their first Test and then to go back and win the series, I think is an incredible achievement.
All right.
Yeah. No, it is an incredible achievement, absolutely. It's interesting, like how you, if you classify like your happiness towards Irish rugby moments over the last few years, like was that like your number one was that the most joy? I know that's a different conversation, but was that the most joy you felt for Irish rugby?
Well, I was shouting in the office. The thing for me is I don't like this plucky underdog narrative that's been around since the foundation of the state 100 years ago. We want to be going there and dominating teams and winning on the global level in sport. And that's why it meant so much to me in terms of a supporter. As I was saying, this is not a rugby man. That's the narrative we wanted to smash. And the only way we're going to win a World Cup or do anything in world sport is by smashing that narrative. And that's why it meant so much to me, symbolically, as an Irish person.
All right, John, good stuff.
All right, lads.
More from John, of course, every Saturday afternoon on Off the Ball on News Talk. A reminder, OTB AM brought to you live each morning by Gillette Labs for an effortless finish to your day. Right, speaking of GAA coverage, back talking hurling, and I'm delighted to say David Herity is back with us. David, good morning to you. How are you getting on?
I'm very good, Ger. How are you keeping?
What did you make of the rugby before we get into the hurling?
The greatest sporting moment. Just listen there. Jesus, it was pretty amazing. In fairness, I don't. Like, it's funny, we'll obviously be talking about the hurling the All-Ireland final in a short while. I was more emotionally attached to the rugby than I would have been to the GAA on Sunday. When it comes to the GAA, I kind of tend to look at it in a manager's point of view now and kind of look for something that I can rob to bring back to my own team, whether it's a warm-up or the state of play or the movement of the forwards. You don't really get into the whole, this is amazing. But Jesus, the rugby, I thought it was incredible. I thought the way, especially after obviously the ball off the crossbar from Johnny Sexton to go down the field, for them to get the try and then to kind of go along and think that, you're always kind of thinking in the aftermath, everyone's going to be talking about, another couple of inches that was over the bar for Johnny Sexton, but they lost, and it was another feel good kind of, they did well enough, they won one of the games, and that was it. But then to go back up the field and finish off the job, I thought it was exceptional. Yeah, I think I thought it was an incredible performance by them, and just see them on the sideline afterwards, and obviously Peter O'Mahony crying away, but just the subs coming down, just that whole euphoria that they're able to enjoy the last 2 minutes of a match like that on the sideline with the subs, knowing that you're about to create history. I thought that was pretty special.
I actually thought there was a lot of parallels between Ireland's victory and a little bit about how Limerick were clearly the better team. The other side gets back into it and then they have to fend them off. And I actually thought Rory McIlroy was going to do exactly the same thing, and it was going to be this triple weekend of achievement where a team, and what looks like the best team, gives the opposition room to get back into the game. So to pivot to the hurling, why were Kilkenny so close to Limerick at the end when it felt like Limerick scores were coming much easier than Kilkenny scores?
I was looking at the stats afterwards that someone puts up on Twitter there, and you're kind of looking for that's the reason why Limerick won, or that's the reason why Kilkenny lost. But the similarities between them all, like what you said there, I found you're jotting down your little notes then in your programme, who's scoring what, and all of a sudden Kilkenny would get their score, like Richie Hogan scoring the 63rd minute, and then you're kind of looking up and you're going, how the hell did Limerick just get a point straight away there?
Yeah.
As in, it just seemed to be the ease. It does go back down to Nicky Quaid. It goes down to the half-forward line. Their movement that's what I was just fixated on the whole day, was looking at Ger Eoin moving a little bit left and then right and then left again. He's just gone off. Tom Morrissey's just all over the place. And then Kyle Hayes the same. They were unstoppable. Now, you would question why the Kilkenny half-backs didn't stay to the outside of them and then pick them up as they're kind of coming over to meet them. And I thought there wasn't as much communication there as should have been there. Like, even when you looked at when Clare played Limerick back in the Munster final, it was the group game that time, and you saw the Clare lads was actually getting Ger Eoin in a headlock and dragging him to the ground on puckouts. You're kind of going, it nearly needed that level of physicality where someone just took one for the team and just decided, no, enough is enough here. You're not getting the run of the park. But he was, what did he win? There was something like there was 13 puckets hit down on top of him. He won 11 clean. When you compare that to TJ Reid, seemed to be kind of mauled and molested every single time the ball was hit down to him. He was still winning some of the puckouts, but how physically draining that must have been for him to win the ball with someone on his back and then to try and give off the ball. It just seemed like Kilkenny were exerting far more energy on the puckouts. I think that was the only stat that I kind of looked at, and it went Kilkenny won 42% of their puckouts. Limerick had won 65 of their long puckouts. I was thinking, it made sense. Just the score seemed to come a lot easier for Limerick than it did for Kilkenny.
And yet, it was only a couple of points in the end. Like, I definitely agree with you, David, that there is this sense that Limerick looked unstoppable at the weekend, and they've looked unstoppable for years, and yet Clare almost stopped them and Galway almost stopped them. And on the scoreline, when people look back, they'll say, geez, that was a close game. Kilkenny almost stopped them. Like, is there, and I appreciate they are absolutely one of the greatest teams of all time, is there still an aspect about that, though, where we already have them on that pedestal and their reputation feeds into the idea that they're unstoppable as much as their brilliant performances do?
I always thought that they were kind of going in not fourth, fifth gear. I just thought that there was always another level. Like when Richie Hogan got that point, and the small enough Kilkenny crowd that seemed to be there, all of a sudden then they hit 5 in a row. And then obviously for the last few minutes then they just brought back Kyle Hayes and put him on the edge of the square, kind of going, you might score a point or two here, but you're not going to bag a goal. Like if they'd won by 5 points, I think everyone would have went, wow, what an amazing team. Plus, you do look at afterwards there, reading an article this morning that David Herity barely made the final. Kyle Hayes barely made the final. They had an injury. Whatever the hell those injuries might have been, said the medical team did a great job. So they're probably after getting an injection there to try and get them through the game. Aaron Gillan didn't look 100%. Peter Casey's only after coming on. Keane Lynch didn't play a minute. So that's what you're kind of looking at, a team like that have more gears to come. They have a savage bench, and they have those under 20s that probably would have won an All-Ireland if they had Cathal O'Neill there this year. So they've, as much as I think you'd like to say, they're coming back to the pot and they are to the rest of the group, I actually think that they could blow it completely out of the water next year. I think the likes of Keane Lynch, especially when it was him that was missing, imagine him coming back into that group next year, kind of drive the standards. Imagine him, he wants to be back out in that field, having that feeling in the 70th minute there, knowing he's going to win an All-Ireland. So I can't imagine him letting up on any of the players around him. I can't, even their group. You hear so many stories coming out about them there the weekend. I was lucky enough to be in the GPA box, and you're kind of talking to different managers, and they're all coming out with stories about Limerick. And just the envy of the kind of managers that are around there, without naming names, kind of they have their gym session night, and the strength and conditioning coach comes in and they're just all there. They're all doing exactly what they should be doing. Everyone's there. Everyone absolutely hammers it out the gym. And then they head off home, and it's just a case of it's just running like clockwork, that they're driving such high standards. Every single player is driving on the next lad, and obviously the lads coming in then, the lads that are playing don't want to lose their position, so because they know they're on the crest of an incredible wave at the moment. And Jesus, when you have players as motivated as that, that's a fairly unstoppable force.
I think Shefflin was in the GPA box as well, but who was he shouting for?
Henry was there, and look, he's Owen Cody's nephew, and he's very close to TJ and Adrian Mullen as well, and obviously Richie Reid as well. So all his kids, we met him up in the skyline earlier on that day, and they're all dressed up there in Kilkenny gear. Yeah, no, they're brilliant, and Deirdre was there as well.
Talk to us about the goalkeepers, will you? Like what? Because there was various stages where Nicky Quaid would let the ball run past him, and you're like, what's going on here? And then it just looked a little bit kind of antsy in possession. But it never resulted in a mistake after that. There's just that like little extra second, or maybe he was totally at ease in his environment. It was like he was poking around in the back garden with the kids, and the ball goes past. He's kind of letting it in, like pretending that he's letting it in, and then all of a sudden he picks it up and pings it past 70 yards. So, what was their respective performances like to your mind?
Nicky Quaid, I would say, is on a par at the moment with Stephen Cluxton in his ability as a goalkeeper. Saw him in 2018. I was blown away by him. He has changed my whole thought process of where goalkeeping and puck out should be, in that he's waiting. He's ready with the ball is literally up in his hand, and he's the hurl just ready, primed. Like, it's not this usual, back in, Jesus, even in my day, you took the few steps and you absolutely lumped it. He is just constantly looking and waiting like a Terminator there, just trying to see, right, where is the space opening up? But the players are making space, and then he hits the pocket. A lot of keepers, obviously, all over the country, the keeper hits the ball and the players move to where the ball is landing. But the players are making the movement. They decide where the pockets are going with the space that they're creating, and then he's able to pick it out. But he's able to control the tempo of the game. He's not getting frustrated. You never see him throwing up the arms going, like, again, you would see in club games going, well, someone flip and move, like, He's just waiting, and again you have Hegarty and Morrissey, and they're moving over and back, and it's Jesus. Even on the, I said after the game on Sunday that a scoreable free. Everything nowadays is that everyone has their little gimmicks and their power plays and so on, and there might be a scoreable free there, and TJ took a free, so I'm kind of obsessed then looking at the Limerick forwards going, right, how are they going to set up on a scoreable free? Because it's an easy enough thing for a forward line to try and know what's coming up, and then they have they're probably about 30 seconds to try and organise. And then the first one, O'Donoghue and Donovan pushed up right up into the half forward and created that bit of space. Now they ended up losing that one, but then the next one, then after TJ's free, they went spinal, and then the next one, then they went zonal. They loaded one side, and the next one was back to a spine again. You're constantly looking around going, who the hell is organising this? There's no one pointing. There's normally one person, maybe your centre forward is dragging everyone over because people aren't awake to it. But they're just running like clockwork. They just move in such unity that they all know what they're doing, and they're all able to create this space. And again, I don't know, maybe if Paddy Deegan and Mikey Carey had stood to the outside of the two half forwards, maybe then Nicky Quaid has obviously the intelligence then, right, I'm going straight down the middle where there's three lads versus Richie Reid. He is incredible. And again, you look back in the highlights and he's running out with the ball. Gerard Hegarty is just slotting out to that kind of that kind of between the 65, just picking up a ball, and then he's driving over the bar. It's a nightmare for defenders, because normally the golden rule is you follow your forward out to the 65 and you leave him off after there, because you kind of think, well, after there, then he's probably going to get caught up and some midfielder is going to come out and he won't be able to be shooting under pressure. But Gerard Hegarty only needs kind of a yard of space, and it's straight over the bar from 100 yards. Even when David Blanchfield was on him for the last puck, he just threw him off like a rag doll and then slotted over the bar from about 80 yards. It's just sublime physicality. On Owen's puckouts, I just felt TJ he didn't have many options. The movement was wasn't great at all. The half forward line were far too close out to midfield looking for the ball, and that's an impossible ball for a goalkeeper to hit then, because it's like a pitching wedge. You're trying to get it over the midfielders to land it down on the half forward line's head, but then you just have, like the Dermot Burns point, you have a half back who's just sitting ready, that when he does catch it, he actually is out in the 65 and he can slot it straight back over the bar. They didn't seem to have as much cohesion in knowing, right, where are we going with this? And then obviously then he was route one down to TJ. The half forward line were out too far, so TJ was left isolated. So when the ball did break, you would probably Declan Hannon coming back, picking up. Barry Nash was always brilliant anyway. And then kind of, but when Wally Welch came on, it gave him the two kind of high towers there in the second half there, that he had two options there, that he was able to go left and right. And Limerick found it quite difficult then for a while to try and get to terms with Wally Welch. That's why I thought Wally or John Donnelly should have started to give on a bit more range there. Adrian Mullen's obviously an outstanding hurler, but probably moving him to midfield and starting there and starting one of John or Wally Welch in the final, I'd say that was just one of the mistakes that Kilkenny made.
On the Quaid puckouts, David, can any team sort of replicate at least the plan of what you're talking about there, of the clockwork, of the varying formations that are in front of Quaid? I know obviously the hard part of that is being as good as Nicky Quaid is in terms of nailing it every single time, just like Cluxon was in his heyday. But is there parts of that element of his game that other counties can replicate?
Oh, everyone can, but you need an extremely patient goalkeeper that's not just going to get peed off and then all of a sudden then just drive the ball and throw the hands up. You need someone who's extremely calm, patient with the forwards, understanding it's not working now, it's not working, that moment is not there, now it's there, now I'm pinging it out, now I can see the movement, and then they're able to get the ball. Again, just small little things. Ger Eoin not winning a ball and he has his back turned to Owen Murphy's goal, where he has to do a full 180 and he's a back up him. It's the fact that when that ball is bouncing, he's already winning the ball half turned. He has his shoulder nearly facing towards the other goal. So a lad of his size, it's incredibly easy then for him to just get a ball on the bounce, turn, and he's already gone through the back. It's an impossible job for the back. But that's months and years of planning. That's John Kiley and Kinnerk been together now for 5 years working on this. I'm sure I just say in my time, we would have worked on puck outs. We would have done probably about 10 minutes of puck outs maybe 3 times a year, where it was all about the break. So I'd just lump down a ball, we'd work on the break for 15 seconds, and that was it. And we'd blow up the whistle and we'd go back up again. But there's no movement, there's no structure, no one has a clue where they're going. It's just a fact. But then again, you didn't have to. When you had TJ Reid or Henry or Richie Power or Owen Larkin or Gerta there, like you didn't have to be working on styles or formations. You just did what you did. But it's the time and patience for a manager and a team to be able to go along and go, right, we're actually going to go along and spend a whole session on this tonight, or we're spending 30 minutes tonight, and again we're going over before the match. Here are our puck out plans, here are options, and everyone's just drilling puck outs in. Because again, you know, Owen Murphy has 42 puck outs on Sunday. Quaid had, I think it was 35. So the keeper has the ball the most amount of time in a match. It's about respecting that and kind of going, well, we have to get these 42 and 35 puck outs right. Like you have to put time into it. And I just think it's nearly boring, or there's not enough meat to it there sometimes for managers, where they're kind of going, let's just get on with it. Just like even heard down in Wexford, Davy Fitz had Mark Fanning. He had an earpiece in him for one of the last matches, where Mark Fanning wasn't in control of the puckouts anymore. Davy Fitz had the earpiece, and he was telling him where to puck the ball. You're kind of thinking, well, where's the autonomy there? Like that's just one. That's only was it 2 years ago now at this stage. I think it was down below in Clare, where again I suppose that caused a bit of riff at that time. But it's to be able to go along and actually trust your players and let them do what they're doing. But that's that's the quick fix, trying to tell the manager where to go. And sorry, just another thing, just on puckouts, because it is one of my pet peeves now in life. It's also the kind of manager, when you are doing puckouts, the manager standing out around midfield, facing the goalkeeper, waiting for the goalkeeper to puck out the ball. And I would have had arguments with Brian over down through the years. He's like, hit out the ball, hit the boys are moving. He'd turn around, they'd all be like statues. He'd turn around, everyone would start buzzing all over the place. And then he'd look back at me going, well, you hit the runners. And I'm like, there's nobody effing moving. And then there'd be, the stare off would happen. Then two headstrong men going at each other, kind of. But it was just, that was it. It was, if you want to see how puckouts are done, stand down beside the goal and see what the keeper is seeing. And all of a sudden, then you'll soon see. I used to kind of say, it was like, take me out. The show like that, the lights start going out. Like you have a corner back with your back, don't you? So that's that light gone. And then he's after closing off the space of the half back. So that's his light gone out. And then you soon realise then there's 7 or 8 lights are gone. The corner forwards are not even tuned into what's going on because they think the ball is too far away. Like, so you're trying to then explain to the manager, but if he's out of midfield, it just doesn't work. He doesn't see what's going on. So that's why I look at technology as well, having cameras behind the goals and facing out and seeing all the movement patterns that you can now obviously makes a big difference. And I'm sure Limerick have all these equipment there at their disposal.
Would you wear an earpiece? Would you welcome that as a goalkeeper?
You can't see from where. Sorry, as a goalkeeper, would it? No, not in a million years would I want someone in my ear or in my head. I've enough voice in my own head there talking to myself about stuff in life, so I don't need someone else there roaring at me, because again, you cannot, if you're a manager and you're pumped up in the silence, something's after happening, and then all of a sudden then you're there roaring at the goalkeeper down there. Like again, you're talking about how a manager communicates with his goalkeeper. It generally is through a roar, because that's the only way of getting your information to him. Over an earpiece is not the way either, because you'll be just telling them what to do. And like I said, most goalkeepers anyway are extremely headstrong mentalers anyway. That's why they're probably in the goal. They have that in them, that nature. So no, I wouldn't ever have an earpiece on.
The stylistic change of play that we saw from Kilkenny this year was relatively significant, it seems. So is this team on an evolutionary journey now, and should we expect them to address the puck out issue, given that they do seem to have addressed the style where they're at least thinking about being different from the original team that you were part of? It looked like they were trying some short puck outs that, to some degree of success, some issues where they were playing into difficulties, particularly in that first half. But at least they're looking for pockets of space and players in space, as opposed to just lorrying ball down the whole game on Twin Towers and the full forward line.
Yeah, just on the short puck as well. Kilkenny went short 10 times and they never looked comfortable with the 10 times. And it was just, that's one thing. I think Owen's the best goalie of all time and always will be. That's just my own view on it. His puck outs though were just that foot, a yard maybe above the head of Mikey Butler or Tommy Welsh. They were at knee height. And then that creates huge panic. I actually thought Kilkenny could have been done for hitting the ball inside the 21 a few times, that they were under hit and the player was inside. So it's there was that kind of panic then that, Jesus, you could get hit when you take that extra couple of touches, that someone from Limerick is going to come in and absolutely nail you with that. I think they are. I wouldn't say at any point there you can go, God, they're going to push on from that. Because like I said to you last week, in 2014, we were all about this heads-up hurling, that we had changed our style of play because Clare had done it in 13 and we were going to do it then. In 14, we were going to start picking out players and so on. And it never really materialised at all. Maybe, I don't know, for whatever reason, they'd have to kind of stick at it. But the first thing has to be is the same management team go back in place. Again, Conor Phelan's in there. He's the head coach. He's been there now 2 years, but having said that, last year he would have been on, with COVID, he wouldn't have had a massive amount of game time with the lads out on the pitch as well. So I would imagine Conor would love to, take this on another level there as coach and try and develop this. And it's about keeping on to the players. And the great thing is, the very promising thing about Kenny is the fact that whole team, I can imagine the starting team will be staying on next year. So then they're able to have a bit more cohesion with the players that they have, and that they know their movement style and so on. But Brian looked back in that game, could look back in it 10 times, and he'll pick out little things there of people that just didn't match up to us. I can, like I said to you a few weeks ago, that PJ Ryan 2010, he just felt his puck outs weren't going over the half back line, so that was PJ gone, that was him out the gap. And you had Chad Fitzpatrick in that 2010 as well, got held up at midfield, physically wasn't big enough for it, and in Brian's head that was him gone. He, as I said before, he never says it, but in the off season he'll know the different areas there that he needs to improve. He went for myself because I had longer puck than PJ. Michael Fenney was a physically bigger and stronger man than the likes of Chaz, so that was kind of Chaz, the writing was on the wall there for himself as well. And yeah, he'll find different areas there that he probably feels. If he stays on, again, you don't know. I think his stock is pretty high at the moment from a lot of quarters. The fact that he got them back to a final, that it was such a competitive final, that I suppose it's Limerick that won, that are regarded as one of the great teams now, that maybe it might be a time that he might feel that he's moving on. And I don't know. It's hard to know. I'd say it's going to be an interesting, I'd say, battle in his head more than any other year. I'd say, just whether he does stay or whether he heads on.
Because you think deep down he might want to leave it on a high, which this kind of is.
It is. I know, like it is. I kind of, you see articles everywhere. They're kind of, they died with their boots on, and you're kind of, okay, yeah, that no, and they fought to the bitter end. You're kind of going, that's still not where we're at. Like, as in, there's still moments there where you're kind of leaving Gerard Hegarty have the freedom of the whole park. Like, there's still areas there where you're kind of thinking, how was this allowed to happen? Like, where was the control of that half back line? Where were the switches when they were scoring 1:13 from play? Like, what was happening there? Like, and it obviously made the move at half time, bringing on Wally, but it just still showed that they were a small bit slow in their changes, in the kind of movements, even in how they set up on the day. Again, like we said on puckouts, I just don't think it's there yet, or at that level of attention it has gone to that point yet. But it could be a good time for him. But look, that's all up in his own head. Nobody knows. I heard quite recently from a reliable source, he had mentioned to someone that he was going at the end of 2021 and stayed on in 2022. So that, he could decide, he could look at it and kind of go, well, TJ is still there, the whole team is still there. There still is a chance there to get back to that stage. I think, yes, dying with the boots on, it's grand and brilliant and all that kind of stuff. But Kenny it's not easy next year when you have Liam Cal coming in. Just say you've Waterford, the whole new management team. You've Pat Ryan down below at Cork. You've Henry in his second year. Even Ger Eoin in his second year down below. A new manager in Dublin. Next year is going to be a fiery championship. But everyone is back up gunning. And then you have the likes of Limerick there. I thought it was fairly ominous there when you hear John Kiley his interview and goes, we're going to enjoy the next few months and then be ready to go in January. Yeah. Go, Jesus, man, 20 minutes after All-Ireland.
He was at it. He was, yeah.
The split season probably helps the team going for consecutive years.
Yeah, 100%.
Split season is amazing. Just from a personal point of view, it's amazing to be finished up and then know I can sit back, review kind of management teams, looking at players, club championship, just to be able to have that break, complete break, spend some time with the family. I think for an inter-county manager, it's an extremely attractive job at the moment, just from the amount of that you're able to give absolutely your whole life to it for 8 months and then be able to enjoy some life, and then obviously you're still doing your job, and the off season is still fairly chaotic, but it's at a more controlled pace. It's lovely.
David, great stuff, fascinating. Thanks a million for joining us. Cheers.
Thanks, Ger.
It's David Herity. Always great to have him on. Brilliant perspective from somebody who knows the inside of that dressing room and is obviously involved in the inter-county game at the moment as well. 17 minutes past 9. A reminder, OTB AM is live every morning in association with Gillette Labs for an effortless finish to your day. Here's what's on OTB Sports Radio for you across the day. OTB Gold is looking back on the Wexford team of 1956. Our Dadcast is at 3. Packy Bonner's career retrospective is at 4. And Ruby Walsh's career retrospective is OTB Gold at 6. You can follow us across our social channels. Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel, and you can download the OTB Sports app for the latest on our podcasts. We're back after the break with the former Leinster and Connacht player Mike McCarthy for a special forwards breakdown of Ireland's brilliant tour win in New Zealand. First, here's Matt Williams paying tribute to the job that Andy Farrell has done as head coach.
Farrell took over after that World Cup and was a disciple of Joe Schmidt and tried to clone what Joe had done. And Joe's a great coach. I'm not trying to talk Joe down. I'm just trying to say what I see. And for the next 12 months, Ireland didn't progress. And Farrell was not showing, in my opinion, the leadership qualities and the strategic qualities that a successful head coach at international level needs to go, with the talent at his disposal. He had a talented team. In that summer, he changed. And they adopted a ground-up philosophy. And that was based on how Leinster were playing. And he changed his selection policy to have the Leinster players in it. And his structure that Keith has spoken about so correctly was basically not the same, but almost a Leinster structure that empowered decision makers within that structure to make good decisions, including the forwards taking the ball forward. How often have we seen our Irish forward taking forward and just tipping inside or outside leading to a break. They can make those decisions. And that has struck a chord with the players. And the players believe in the system, they believe in the coach, and that started in November 21 and extended right through. And apart from an hour against France and the first test in Auckland, the system that Farrell's put in place has grown and has been very, very effective. There's no guarantees every week in rugby you're going to win, and there's no guarantees that this great performance is going to deliver a great performance in the World Cup. That's not how rugby works. But Farrell has grown and shown that he can lead. He's got a great plan. He's hired great people around him like Paul, and Paul has done a phenomenal job. And that has been handed off onto the players, who he's also empowered after he's educated and aligned them. And this is the creation of what can occur. Now, if we look back at history, the last trip to do this was the Wallabies in 1986. It's my generation of player. Two of my club mates were in that team, Steve Tyman and Brett Patworth. They then didn't evolve, went out the next year in the World Cup, were completely up themselves, didn't think they had to change, and they got bundled out in one of the greatest games of all time by France in the semi-finals. So the evolution and the change that Woody spoke about, to me, that's crucial. I heard Muppets start telling me, they peaked a year too early. I've never heard such rubbish in my life. It's just garbage. Like, we're not an Olympic sport. We don't try and peak every 4 years. It just doesn't happen. That's not how it works. But this Irish team is in a great place.
OTB AM on OTB Sports Radio, Ireland's first and only sports radio station.
This summer, we're bringing you double Koi gig.
I thought that was going to be a much tighter game.
I cannot tell you the audible gasps that there were in the press box yesterday. They looked as stunned as the team on the pitch did.
I thought that they were stronger than that. I thought that they were tactically more aware than that.
For the best insight and analysis from this summer's Euros, subscribe to the Koi Gig Pod on the OTB Sports app now.
OTB AM
with Gillette. Get into your flow with the new Gillette Labs Razor with exfoliating bar.
Mike McCarthy, good morning to you. How are you?
Morning, gents. Good, thanks. How are you doing?
Yeah, pretty good. That wasn't bad at the weekend, was it?
Wow, yeah, it was amazing, wasn't it? You know, to back up that second test performance was incredible, and you know what I loved about it was just that, you know, the guys weren't happy having just won the second test, creating history. They went on during the week. They obviously didn't over celebrate. They went out and attacked it, and it was just incredible, and it was laid upon a bedrock of kind of aggression, set piece foundation. Great to see us scoring tries from the maul, but also multi-phase as well. We were disciplined, we were physical, we were aggressive, real nastiness. We had that little dip after half time where we started to kind of go a bit high in the tackle, slip off a few tackles, but that mindset to stay in the game, and especially when it got back to within 3 points, to go on and finish the game out. Just truly incredible, and lovely to see all the scenes of the guys getting back to the airport, being greeted by their families and their kids, and certainly special memories for the supporters, special memories for the players and coaches, and just truly incredible, wasn't it?
And great to see your slogan on a flag in the stands as well. The morning of the game, yeah. Brodie Retallick is a poor man's Devon Toner. I was like, Mike McCarthy has that phrase tattooed somewhere on his body, I presume.
I actually made that flag. So you wouldn't believe how many people sent me that link. It was crazy. So it was pretty funny. And another highlight for me was Bundy Aki stealing a bit of chicken out of the box. But fantastic. I think he might get cited for that. But no, all good.
Oh, it looked like they were having a good night anyway, and well deserved. We want to get your view on the second rows. Retallick and Whitelock won a World Cup and were generally considered to be the greatest second row partnership since the South African great second row partnership of Bakkies and Victor Matfield. And you can see why. They put together an incredible body of work, but granted, we didn't see them their full peak of their powers for a full 80 minutes. Over the 3 tests, but they were there for a large portion of the game, and James Ryan looked like he was back to his very best against them.
Yeah, exactly. And look, there's no more kind of test experience and quality than that New Zealand partnership in the second row. But yet, you have to be honest, they were completely outplayed. Now that comes down partly to, New Zealand. We're so used to New Zealand being this efficient machine and everyone being a cog in the wheel and doing their job effectively. And I suppose, New Zealand looked like it's been spoken about, a team that, they're not playing the way they have played. It's probably not the same All Blacks that we've seen before, but they just weren't playing with any momentum and probably a lack of urgency. And it just looked like they weren't all on the same page as we're used to seeing them. So, the Irish guys, James Ryan and Tadhg Beirne, were absolutely incredible. Certainly, Tadhg Beirne, he's not the biggest for the second row, and for me going forward, if we were playing a France or an England or a South Africa in the future, I'd probably put Henderson in the second row and accommodate Tadhg Beirne in the back row somewhere. But I mean, for this game, that second row pairing partnership was phenomenal. They're mobile, their work rate's absolutely incredible. Tadhg Beirne over the ball, what did he have? 3 turnovers. And the other thing I love about it is with this pack is that you've got 5 forwards, the 2 second rows and the back row. All of them are efficient line-out jumpers. We've seen before, as to use as an example, CJ Standers, was a big lump, powerful, but he was a lot harder to lift and get up in the line-out. Now you've got 5 forwards who are agile, dynamic. You can throw them up really quickly, dynamically, and they're causing absolute havoc in the second row in terms of stealing ball, disrupting New Zealand ball. And we know how efficient New Zealand have been off that first phase attack and, winning quick line-out, getting to the line-out quickly, getting the ball thrown in. And Ireland were just really efficient, getting to the mark early, being set, and then being able to kind of adjust and move and getting pods in the air. Really, really brilliant stuff.
Kieran Treadwell's got a lot of pop after this tour as well. Essentially has come from nowhere really to be now all of a sudden totally acceptable as our third lock off the bench if we need him.
Yeah, he's had a fantastic tour and his stock's certainly gone up massively. After the disappointment of starting the first kind of test and a Maori test with 2 losses, kind of shows the mindset and the belief and where that kind of mindset's come from years gone by, in terms of guys didn't panic, they stayed strong, they believed, and great work by the coaches to go on, because that would have been a dark place at that first kind of week, 10 days of the tour with the 2 losses, not getting that momentum, not getting off to a good start. But Farrell spoke about, I think after that first Maori game, some guys will play themselves out the squad, sometimes will go on to have a great future with Ireland. And Kieran Treadwell, for someone who I think he's third choice at Ulster, he's come, he's taken his opportunity, he's taken his chance. He's a big lump, but he's mobile, great at set piece, great for scrummaging at that tight head position, but he's mobile, he's good, he's easy to get up in the line out. His calling of line outs, which I don't think he does too much for Ulster, calling the line outs there was great to see, and he featured in every game. What I love about him as well is his work rate, and he's willing to put his hands up, and he goes looking for the ball, he carries hard, he pumps the legs, and he's got a great work rate, and he carries really well.
Can I ask you, we suggested that maybe you might take a look at picking like a joint pack between Ireland and New Zealand, to just get a sense of where we are versus New Zealand at the moment. I feel like we're building a rod for our own back with the next 4 minutes of radio that we're about to make. Give me your combined 1 to 8 from that Ireland versus New Zealand 3-test series.
Yeah, so look, to be honest here, no surprises. I think you were looking for, a few changes, and, I don't want to just pay it lip service, but genuinely that pack that finished is what I would pick as a combined pack after certainly after the last 2 tests. The only change I probably have, not a change, is I'd have Caelan Doris starting at 8. He was absolutely incredible for the whole series, but for the All Blacks, it felt like he was fighting a bit of a lone battle. But Ardie Savea, he was incredible all night. I think 57 meters. He had from 19 carries, 5 defenders beaten, 3 offloads, 9 tackles. He was part of that resurgence after half time when he scored, when he wriggled over. Shortly followed by another try by the All Blacks after. So, for me, I'd go with the same pack that started the game, and the only it wouldn't be a change, but I'd have Ardie Savea alongside Caelan Doris, who was absolutely phenomenal. But the foundation Ireland gave the team from the first minute, that we talk about mindset, that first try by Josh van der Fleer, not taking the 3 points, kicking to the corner, getting that maul going, getting it, that length, that dynamism, that go forward, low body positions, fighting at the front. And that really set the tone. We started so well in all 3 tests, scoring very early. That pack, that front row, potentially a bit of work to do in the scrum going forward. But in terms of the physicality and the line out, the maul, New Zealand just couldn't contain the Irish pack. And it was brilliant. Great stuff.
So neither Whitelock or Italic come into your thinking?
Well, based on those last 2 games, I know they're amazing players, but I suppose that shows the standard Ireland have set in these last 2 games and how well they've played. I mean, can you say you'd start them after that performance? I certainly couldn't. Look, I know the quality and the experience and the number of caps they've got, but those 2 lads were absolutely phenomenal in terms of being a nuisance at the breakdown, turning the ball over. Tyburn, 3 turnovers at the breakdown, a line-out steal, 18 tackles. You couldn't ask for a better performance. And then looking forward to further down the line, you've got Ian Henderson to come back, Kieran Treadwell's emergence after, I suppose, Quinn Roux moved on, and not Bundyaki, Alton Delan's moved to France. We're in a really good place. Front row were brilliant, and the back row, Josh van der Fleer, all-round display. I think he's made 62 tackles and 1 miss over the 3 test matches. Just the fitness levels, the efficiency, the dynamism, the ability to get back up on their feet and keep offering themselves, coming onto the ball at pace.
Josh van der Fleer is in the running for Player of the Year, isn't he? For World Player of the Year.
Yeah. I mean, he has to be. He's just relentless. He's just an absolute machine. The fitness levels, as I say, just the Richie McCaw-esque ability to kind of take knocks and bangs and get back on his feet, keep going. It's just relentless. It's just in your face. The line speed he brings in defence, getting up off the line, the pest, the nuisance he is at the breakdown, his ball carrying, coming on, which is something actually I think Stuart Lancaster started. When he first came to Leinster, and it's rippled into all the other provinces, is those 3-man setups off 9 or 10. I think in the past we've been guilty of catching the ball static and trying to get going from there. You see now everyone's animated, everyone's got their hands up, everyone's coming onto the ball at pace, something that you've seen Saracens do over the years. And, that's something that Stuart Lancaster, I know that's for Leinster, but I think it's something that's rippled into Ireland's play. That's something, I remember back in 2017, Stuart Lancaster used to show clips of Saracens doing that. Not just standing in that 3-man pod setup, standing still, catching the ball, then trying to generate momentum. Guys are animated, they're coming onto the ball at pace. And the other thing I've loved, which has been a real theme over, I think since Farrell came in and Paul O'Connell came in to do the forwards, is the footwork. And that's, I suppose, summed up by Dan Sheahan, the footwork pre-contact, not running just straight and hard at bodies. We do that at times, but our ability to catch the ball, a little bit of footwork just pre-contact and to make it a soap tackle by the All Blacks. It's not a dominant tackle because they're not running, straight. They're running hard, a little bit of footwork. They're getting arms tackles. They're winning those inches, getting that momentum. And, it's that ripple effect just gives Ireland that momentum, that go forward, which makes life so much easier for everyone else to play off.
Do you think this Ireland?
Sorry, I'm just having a drink. I'm getting too excited, aren't I?
But I was actually just going to ask this joint Ireland-New Zealand pack. How would it fare against a South Africa pack or a France pack?
Yeah, so look, obviously we've been tested there against arguably the best side in the world. We've created history. Created history twice, I suppose. But look, Andy Farrell, I think, has beaten the All Blacks five times. Once with England, once with the Lions, 3 times with Ireland. So, he brings that own mental toughness and mindset into the camp. And, we've shown we can beat the All Blacks, and it's not a fluke. It's we're generally good enough. And all this talk of peaking before the World Cup, it's hopefully that's not the case. And, I don't think you can read too much into it. But, the last World Cup, I think we were number 1 year out from the World Cup. And the only real concerns for me is, going forward to the next World Cup is, keeping a 37-year-old fly half who's been absolutely phenomenal and he's incredible, isn't he? His ability, his physicality, and the way he controls the game, keeping him fit because we still don't seem to have any backup plan. It's been great to see Cian Frawley come in and have a great second test against the Maoris. Be interesting to see what happens with Leinster going forward in terms of if he gets game time there and how he progresses. Harry Burns, it's been frustrating with all the injuries. He hasn't emerged. Jack Carty out injured. So it's a worry. So we've got to keep him fit. And the other kind of concern is we've got great strength and depth. Great, you look at Jack Conan, a Lion on the bench, Cian Healy on the bench. But, that game, our 2 props played 70 minutes. That doesn't really happen in Test match rugby anymore. So, have we got that depth and strength that we need going into the World Cup? We need to keep Porter and Tyg Furlong fit, obviously. But, they can't be playing 70 minutes, leading up to the World Cup.
No, definitely.
I'm sorry. I am getting very excited, Hannah, because I have not answered your question, but here I'm going to answer it now. You asked if we're playing the kind of likes of South Africa, and I suppose, that they're completely different games. They're not played as a fast pace as playing against the All Blacks. I suppose England, France, South Africa. They're much bigger men, so it's a real test of up front in terms of your set piece. And I think there is a little bit work to do in the scrum. It progressed as we went through the tournament, but for me, that's why I mentioned before. If I was making any changes specific to those games, it would probably be. It's been great to see Dan Sheahan come in and get game time, but probably looking at for those games, Ronan Kelleher coming into hooker position, Ian Henderson coming into the second row, and based on whoever's playing the best out of Peter Romani and Tyg Byrne, for that 6th position, they're probably the only kind of changes I consider when you're coming up against those 3 bigger, heavier kind of forward packs.
All right, Mike, well, unfortunately we're out of time, but that was great. Thanks a million.
Oh, you're joking me. I had loads more to say.
What else? Quick, I'll give you 10 seconds.
No, that's it. To sum up, very exciting. I've had a great time watching the 3 tests. I hope you have too. Hit 2, 3, 4, yes, 2, 3, 4. Squeeze!
Good stuff.
Thanks, guys. Cheers. Bye.
Take care. That's Mike McCarthy there. Do you think he did he come up with you're just a shit Devon Toner?
Oh, definitely. Mike McCarthy is the president on Uachtaráin of the Devon Toner fan club.
OTB AM brought to you live each morning by Gillette Labs for an effortless finish to your day. I just want to read out one final tweet. Surely Maurice Fitzgerald just carried a baby Clifford down from the top of Cron Tuathal in his arms, draped in a Kerry flag. No immaculate conception required.
That's exactly what happened.
It seems to be the long line all the way back.
Yeah.
Ad infinitum.
That's
and
it.
so this is the week. Owen, you're off now. I'll see you again after the game.
Yeah, you're going for Galway on Sunday.
I'll either be tasting your Scott Tenorman tears, or you'll be like, yes, screw you, screw you all.
Yeah, I'm quite a humble winner, actually.
No,
humble loser.
Certainly.
Magnanimous loser, humble winner.
Okay. Some of your friends are not humble winners.
No, but I can only speak for myself. I just associate with bad people. But you are rooting for a Galway win on Sunday, right?
Well, we just want to see,
You hate Kerry.
I don't.
You absolutely
I love
despise
Kerry.
You just said you want to drink Kerry tears.
I love Kerry people.
It's kind of like a borderline cannibalism there.
I love you, Owen. I want you to be happy. Just not on Sunday. Right, we're back tomorrow from 7:30. Johnny Ward and myself in studio as we begin our All-Ireland Senior Football Championship final build-up, speaking to the new Antrim manager Andy McEntee and much more as well. Right now, we're leaving you with some hurling highlights. Enjoy.
Off the ball. This is News Talk.
Yeah, you're very welcome back to the final hour of tonight's Off the Ball. We are looking back on yesterday's All-Ireland Hurling final, won of course by Limerick with a 131-226 victory over Kilkenny. Their 3rd title in a row, their 4th in 5 years. The train keeps on rolling. The Liam McCarthy has been presented to a massive crowd down at the TUS Gaelic grounds this evening by John Kiley and co. To look back on yesterday's final, delighted to say I'm joined by 2 men who've gotten their hands on that particular piece of silverware before in their relative respective careers. Shane McGrath joins us on the line, as does James O'Connor. Gents, you're very welcome back to the show.
Cheers, Richie.
Hi, Richie. How's things?
Welcome, thank you. Shane, I'll turn to you first, because it's like we tend to veer as a society, as kind of in the modern age, towards the kind of hyperbole, and that the latest thing is the best thing since sliced bread, and it's the greatest thing since whatever. But there was a sense yesterday watching that, Shane, that we were actually watching something pretty special between those two sides.
Yeah, it was a serious game of hurling. Like 131 to 226. I think it was the highest scoring final on record as well. And just, if you look at what was done from play as well, Richie, I just have the programme here, and like the Limerick half forward line alone scored 113 from play. Like, it's phenomenal shooting, it's phenomenal return. Ger Eoin scored 1-5, Kyle Hayes 4 points, Tom Morrissey 4 points. Tom Morrissey scored 4 points, got taken off. I tell you, I think even some of my best games for tape, I never even scored 4 points. But I just maybe it was a thing with the GPS, maybe it was going, and maybe just feel he was running out of gas. And look, I think it was Cathal O'Neill or Conor Boylan that came on, and they added a lot of energy to it. But look, as a spectacle, as a hurling game, I thought the first half was kind of tetchy enough. Limerick still had 117 on the board, and Kilkenny had 16 points on the board. And look, lads, like I was just looking at Kilkenny's scores there. They scored 226, right? They had 15 different scores. Like, if you told any Kilkenny person this time last week, you'll score 226, you'll have 15 different scores on the score sheet. Like, I'd say that most of them would feel, yeah, we're going to win this. And I was just going through the last 10 finals even. That was enough to win the 6 out of the last 10 finals. And the last time Kilkenny scored more than that in an All-Ireland final was 2008 against Waterford, when they scored 330 and they still couldn't win the match. So I just think what I'm trying to get across is like that it was a serious game. Kilkenny really came to the party. They really showed up on the day, but it still just wasn't good enough to beat this awesome unit that is Limerick at the moment, Richie.
Yeah, James, you scored 226 in the final, and you don't want to say you expect to win it, but when you're going up against the side of the calibre of Limerick, it's just unfortunately one of those things where it's not going to get the job done, particularly with the level of scoring that we're seeing now on a pretty much a game-by-game basis in the championship.
Yeah, Richie, we scored 111, and it was good enough in 1995. They've 117 on the board at half time. Like, to score 226, that 30 points normally gets it done, and normally it's comfortable enough to get it done. And I felt all year watching Clare, like, that if they got to that level, that they hit that 30-point target, they were going to win the match. So yeah, Kilkenny did so many things they needed to do, particularly in that second half. They needed goals, they got the goals, they got level. They were level with 7 minutes, I think, left on the clock, and really asked all the questions, Richie. And Limerick have had to go to the well, probably deeper this year than any other the previous titles that they've won. Clare obviously asked serious questions in the Munster final. The Waterford match was a contest late on. Tip asked questions, and obviously the semi-final with Galway. So you were wondering, if Kilkenny could take them down the stretch again, would they have the energy? Would they have the desire? And the hunger to dig deep? And they surged 5 points clear, and that was their response, and that's the sign, I suppose, in a measure of the team that they are. So, yeah, deserving champions, and I think there's no debate. The best team won yesterday, and probably won by a margin that was probably a lot closer than arguably it should have been, because certainly at half time you were wondering how were Kilkenny in this game, because Limerick appeared to have played so well. Lots of Kilkenny guys, weren't performing, and yet, I suppose, particularly up front, TJ Reid just kept winning dirty ball and picking out the right pass and manufacturing frees and nailing obviously everything. And every one of those frees was a pressure free, given that they weren't flowing the way that they'd have liked. So, a great final, Richie. And, Kilkenny asked the questions, and as I said, hats off to Limerick. They had all the answers.
Shane, that's the remarkable thing about that first half yesterday, because we were watching it, and particularly in around like the 20-30 minute mark, you're kind of thinking, all right, we've had the Ger Eoin goal. He's clipping over points to beat the band. Limerick looked like they were seriously well-oiled machine, and this could be whatever they wanted to be. And a lot of people kind of looked at each other by the time the halftime whistle went, saw that Kilkenny were within 4, still had the likes of Walter to come off the bench, and figured, you know what, this isn't actually over. That's testament to how well Kilkenny actually managed to play up against that force of Limerick in the first 35 minutes.
Yeah, they only had 4 wides in the first half. Limerick only had 5 wides. Efficiency was through the roof, I think, yesterday as well, Richie, which is massive kudos to two groups to be the most efficient they were all year on the biggest of days. I think it's a great sign of composure and, I suppose, trusting the system. But I think it's also a great sign of lads save their best performances for the biggest day. It's a fantastic thing to be able to do. But like, I was like, you know, for me, like say Limerick I was just looking at it here, they had 13 points from play in the first half, and Kilkenny had 9 points from play in the first half. And it's gas to think that almost half of that came from their half back line. Like Paddy Deegan had 2 points from play, Richie Reid had a point from play, and Mike Carey had a point from play. And then on the other side, you know, Dermot Byrne scored 4 unbelievable frees. And I think, lads, I think it got lost in the absolute maybe brilliance of the game. But Dermot Burns actually scored a free from the edge of the D in Croke Park. Like, I mean, it was a phenomenal strike of a ball. And people probably say, you know, maybe the ball is too light and everything. But I would be more inclined maybe go towards like Dermot Burns is the best long-range ball striker in the game at the moment. He hits it right out the middle every time. I suppose, you know, I love the golf. James, he loves the golf as well. We even got to play there recently together. And like, I just watch these guys, you know, you watch the likes of Rory, Morikawa, Spieth, you know, Cam Smith, and it's right out the middle of the club. And I'd say if you looked at Dermot Burns' hurley and the sweet spot, I'd say every ball is coming out right out the middle of his hurley, like every time, and he just nailed them. But like, you know, Kilkenny 9 points from play, as I said, 4 of them come from their half back line. I just think the efficiency of TJ on the frees as well. While Dermot Burns is the best long range striker, TJ is probably the best free taker in the game at the moment as well. Gillan is serious now as well, but like he got seven frees in the first half. He scored every one of them. He missed 1 chance from play, but I just think that Kilkenny kept hanging in there, you know, because TJ is so good at the frees, and you know, because of what they got, I suppose the return they got from the half back line. Disappointing from Richie, I suppose, is that you know their midfield was probably one area of the pitch that just didn't happen for him yesterday. Kenny scored 1-2 from playing the semi-final, taken off. Connor Brown taken off as well. Like, I felt Will O'Donoghue in particular really bossed that middle of the field yesterday, and I suppose that's kind of one area maybe Kilkenny will be a bit disappointed with in terms of, you know, the first half. But like, to still be only 4 points in it at half time, it was a great sign of you know, of the work rate, and I suppose, as I said, the efficiency they had shooting that goal as well. Like,
James, you mentioned there, like 95, you won it with 113. We're talking about scoring 226 and not winning it. Obviously, that factor of being able to shoot from range has become a huge one in hurling, and having those players like Dermot Burns who are able to crack it over from 70-80 yards, like it's massive. But similarly, it's not as if he's aiming at a target that is about 25 foot wide. What he's trying to do from that range of the pitch is absolutely incredible. And you factor that into as well, like we were talking about in the office before the show, while people are able to take on those shots now, it's not as if you came away from yesterday's game thinking that those long range efforts were what dominated yesterday's game, which is testament to, I guess, the skills of both sets of players on show.
Yeah, I mean, again, players just, I suppose, play what's in front of them. And I mean, Hugh Lawler at full back was outstanding, Richie, yesterday, because Gillan got, you know, plenty of good ball that he's feasted on in previous matches, and his touch was a little bit off yesterday, and you know, obviously his knee was heavily strapped, and you know, he didn't look to be 100%. But Hugh Lawler a lot of the time was in the acres of space with him, and you know, the ball was to Gillan's advantage, and you know, certainly it wasn't Gillan at his best yesterday. He still obviously clipped over a few and got the frees and was, you know, constant menace and always required watching. But you know, Limerick, I mean, Ger Eoin was shooting Richie and taking shots on that, you know, if they hadn't gone over, you might have been questioning what's he doing here. But I mean, he was strolling around nonchalantly, hitting the ball over the bar from 80, 90 yards. And I mean, to do what Hegarty did yesterday, I mean, 7 points from play in the 2020 final. He had 2-2 in last year's final from play and 1-5 yesterday. And to be able to produce those performances, Richie, you know, on the biggest stage, under the greatest pressure, you know, speaks volumes for that guy's mindset and the strength, you know, mentally that he has, you know. So look at Limerick of guys that just obviously Burns has been playing, you know, has been great form all year, and you're taking on those shots, Richie, because of the confidence that you have, and obviously it's something you've worked on. And listen, Limerick believe, and I'm sure it's part of the game plan, etc., that if they get more shots off than the opposition, you know, they're invariably going to win the match. And I'd say if you look back at the stats and look back at the the shots on at the post yesterday. Limerick probably had more shots at goal than Kilkenny did, and that's probably been the case all year. And their efficiency levels yesterday, if you keep your wide counts in single digits, you're probably going to win most matches. And you look at Galway, 19 wides in the semi-final, Clare at 24. And you can't afford those levels of inefficiency. So for Limerick and Kilkenny yesterday, to have, I think it was 10 wides apiece, that's what's required on the biggest stage. And the quality of some of those scores that Limerick got from out the field yesterday was as good as anything we've seen in Croke Park, and particularly Haggerty and Burns. I mean, the one in the first half again where he caught it over Owen Cody's head and drove forward and nailed it. I mean, those scores are inspirational. They lift the crowd and they lift the team. But every aspect, Richie, of the way Limerick play, I mean, their puck outs, the way they're constructed, the thought that's going into it, the planning that's going into it, and obviously then to be able to execute it time and time again, is testament to the levels they've taken it to. And every year, you're wondering, can teams close the gap? And Limerick seem to be on a particular level, and teams get to that level, but then find that Limerick have gone to another level again. And that's the challenge facing everybody again, to get stronger, to get faster, to get more efficient, to get more tactically aware in your own puck outs, on their puck outs, figure out ways how to stop them. And they look like again that they're not done. And seeing and listen to Haggerty after the game in particular. I mean, after playing for 75 minutes in that heat, and he looked like he could have gone for another 25 minutes. And then to be as grounded and as down to earth as he was, and speak, I suppose, about the way the Dublin footballers have spoken, and Kilkenny hurlers in the past, that this is like a drug to those guys. And I said that's bad news for everybody else listening to him beneath field after the game, and what their mindset is going to be going forward.
Yeah, Shane, those players out there are kind of rare. Like they have that ability to time almost moves at a different speed for them. And you got that sense watching Ger Eoin Haggerty yesterday, pretty much from the goal chance onwards. The speed of thought with which he executed that goal was sublime. And then factor in, as James mentioned, several points that he knocked over after that. Like he seemed to be playing his own game in a way, in amongst a fantastically well-oiled machine. But he did seem to have that extra split second of time with which to make decisions, with which to get shots away, and was just exceptional, really.
Yeah, I suppose there's a few things on Ger Eoin Haggerty. I think that the first thing is, I think I heard him doing an interview after about the 2018 final, in which Limerick made the breakthrough, and I suppose they broke that glass ceiling and they set up for the historic stuff they're after doing now, and winning the first one for them, it's always nearly the hardest, because it gives them the belief. But Haggerty did an interview after that and said while he was absolutely thrilled that they won, he was actually disappointed with his own performance in that game. And like James, he's after calling out his numbers from the last three finals since, and it's off the charts. But this guy's playing a different game to everyone else, lads. I mean, his physicality, a lot of people know he's a fantastic footballer as well. He's an athlete, but this guy can hurl. He's some stick man. I mean, we all talk about Cian Lynch's ability to flick that ball in his hand, at pace and just make it look so easy. Haggerty's doing it on a regular basis. He doesn't go full tilt all the time. He's kind of moving around, ghosting around, but he almost seems disinterested. And then he's gone, and it's too late for whoever's marking him, because you don't know when he's going to go and when he's not going to go. But I feel that just even watching him in Croke Park, that he knows when he needs to go full tilt, when he needs to go 100%, and he knows when he can just ghost around and find that space for himself. He's one of the best in the game at doing it. And even listening to guys maybe that would have marked him before, he's very difficult to mark because of his physicality, his hurling ability, but because of that hurling brain he has to find space, know when to make a run, know when to not, know when to save energy for the next run. And he's one of the most unmarkable figures in the game at the moment. No matter what way you go about trying to mark him, if you go physical with him, he'll win it. If you go toe to toe and try and go up and catch it with him, you're at nothing there. So. And I also think the confidence he had in himself yesterday, because he didn't have the best of semi-finals, Richie, for his standards now. And we're talking, there would have been a lot of lads would be very happy with what they did in semi-final for a Ger Eoin Haggerty type game. But for his own standards, we don't normally see him taking off a lot. He came off, and to have the self-confidence, the first ball he gets in his hand after 3 going on 4 minutes in an All-Ireland final against Owen Murphy, one of the best, and will be up there with the greatest goalies to ever play hurling. was only one spot he could put it, like, and it was, you know, maybe a 2-inch squared window, and like to put it there exactly. And look, it set the tone for the game for himself. Then, as Jamesy said, he just had one of those days. Then, you know, I mean, taking on these shots, 1-5 from play. I think he 2 wides as well. Could have 1-7, 1-8 from playing an All-Ireland final, but I suppose we're used to this guy doing that now with the numbers as James he gave you there from the finals. And as I said, lads, I really do think he's on a different level. I think he's playing a different game to a lot of the rest of us at the moment. And yeah,
James, go on ahead, yeah.
Yeah, and just 2 things, Richie. I mean, number one, his touch for that first goal was unbelievable. And I don't know if Flanagan meant actually, you know, throw it to him. You know what I mean? It looked like it kind of did, that he just got was able to push it nearly with the outside of his right foot. But I mean, the touch up into his hand was just sublime, and that's a guy like that's just has absolute confidence in what he's doing. So that's the first thing. The second thing is that, like, watching Morrissey and Hegarty kind of run amok in you know, the 2020 final and the 2021 final. I think teams have realised that, look, you have to man mark these guys, and I thought Clare and Galway had success to an extent when they kind of put the shackles on Morrissey and Hegarty. And when I say put the shackles on, you contain them and limit the damage as best you can. And certainly if there's one area that Kilkenny would look back on, it's just, you know, did they get it right tactically? And did they get the matchups right?
Well, that was going to be my question to you, James. Like, was there a better way that Kilkenny could have gone about marshalling Gearóid Hegarty? Or when you have, like, I'm thinking of that, like, if we were talking about man marking, like Dan Morrissey fielded the ball in the second half, shooting into the Hill 16, took it in one hand, landed, spun, sent it over in like one fluid movement, like with a man literally right up his arse. Like there's literally no way you can defend against that. When
Richie, wasn't there? Like, sorry, now just to say, because James was there yesterday, you know, and I was there. I was even looking down at the sideline, and James, I don't know if you saw this or not, know where you were, but I even think there was confusion with Cody and the management team as what are we going to do with these lads? Like Paddy Deegan had scored 2 points from play, but like Hegarty had 1-3, 1-4 scored. Like, he was getting up the field. So like James, you'll obviously touch on it, Richie, but I think there even was confusion with Kilkenny management as what are we actually going to do with this fella? Like, because he goes back inside his own 65 sometimes too, Richie. Do you follow? Do you stick? Do you twist? I don't know what Jamesy thinks as well, if he saw that now or not. Maybe it was just me from where I was.
Yeah, that's the challenge, Richie and Jay, because like as a wing back, like, you know, you don't want to be 100 yards from your own goal, or, you know, leaving your full back or the 2 lads in your full back line maybe on an island, and that's the conundrum that the players have. I mean, because, you know, you allow him, you know, you don't follow him beyond midfield, and suddenly he's picking up breaks, and he's, as I said, he's nailing shots from 80, 90 yards, and that forces you to come out, and you come out then and there's suddenly 50, 60 yards of space in front of Gillane, and the quality of the ball going in then, you know, leaves you exposed, and your one slip, Hugh Lawler slipped maybe once yesterday, and Gillane has the ball in the back of the net. So that's the tactical challenge that you face. But I certainly thought, you know, on the puckouts, you know, Fintan Burke did a really good job on Hegarty in the semi-final. Now, part of it was WrestleMania, Richie, and I mean, you know, like if I was a Limerick supporter that day, I'd have been screaming for a booking for Fintan Burke, or screaming for the linesman to do something about it. And, you know, listen, the Clare lads, obviously there was a certain amount maybe of holding and you could check and runs and stuff like that off the ball, but I think you have to man mark the 2 wing forwards. They've been so influential. You know, 12 points I think from play in the 2020 final, and I think Morrissey got, I don't know, was it 5 points or whatever from play in last year's final. You know what I mean? So these guys have been chipping in, you know, 1-8 yesterday with 11, 12 points from play between them in the All-Ireland finals, and, you know, those guys doing that kind of damage, you know, has to be curtailed. And that's why I was just surprised, and I just say if Cody had it back, you know, would Mikey Carey have been a better matchup on Hegarty? And I think, you know, the communication, particularly when, you know, and the lads highlighted on the Sunday game last night, when they're in the middle, you know, there's huge space, you know, on the opposite flanks. You know, there are ways around that. You know what I mean? You can play zonally, you can, you know, better communication, handing them off if they cross and so on. And certainly the joy that Limerick had on their own puck-out when they went long, you know, was something I'd say that Cody, when he looks back on it, will feel that okay, if we meet them again, this is something we have to get a handle on.
It's a glaring issue. Like I was reading Sean Flynn's piece on the 42 today. It's fantastic as regards like tactical breakdowns and numbers and all that kind of stuff. Kilkenny players, he said, saw they retained possession on 13 of their 32 long puckouts. Limerick, by comparison, had 34 long puckouts and retained possession on 25 occasions. Like you're doing 50% better. Like that's just bare facts. And Shane, is it something that Kilkenny neglected to work on, need to work on, or is it a combination of the two? Because it's something that isn't sustainable against the likes of Limerick going forward.
Yeah, and I think it's the Limerick factor as well. I think like Limerick haven't changed the way they played now, lads, for a few years, like, because it's worked. But like lots of teams have tried different things to try and combat it and try and go against it and try and defeat them. James is right when he said, Clare tried something. They tried that push and squeeze and it did work. Galway tried it and look, it did work. It was very, very close game, but everyone else is changing for Limerick, if that makes sense. Like Limerick won't change the way they play because they have such a good core group of players there. I think they're the only group in the country that can play the way they play. Like you could be on about other teams and they bring back their wing forwards and they do this, but I mean, if they're taking shots and they're mishitting the ball, or you don't have the likes of a delivery for like a Declan Hannon or a Dermot Burns or these guys to hit that space that's left by the wing forwards. Not every team has that, lads. So I think Limerick are the only team that can play the way they do. I think I don't think they mind what way you go about it. Like if you want to let them have the ball short, that's fine. Barry Nash is as comfortable at the ball as anyone in the field. I think he's in hurler deer territory, so if you give him the ball and give him 30 yards, 40 yards space, he'll pick off the space left or right of your extra defender, your sweeper, whatever you want to call it. If you want to go long, which Kilkenny did for the first half, and I think it was just to kind of make a note of it up there yesterday. They went
OTB AM
with Gillette. Get into your flow with the new Gillette Labs Razor with exfoliating bar.